Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Transport for London Board meeting. I'm told it's the 8th of July. I welcome those also observing, whether it's virtually or in person. This meeting is being held in person. It's also been webcast on the GLA website and on TfL's YouTube channel to ensure the public, press and others can observe the proceedings and decision-making without the need to attend. I'd ask colleagues to please speak clearly when presenting items or joining the discussion, and we're also joined by colleagues online. Please use the raised hand button and just shout if I don't see you, and I'll bring you in. It's just because I'm distracted by what's happening in the room. And you're most welcome those joining online as well. There are no fire drills planned. If the fire alarm sounds, leave the building by the nearest exit. For us in this place, there's the door over there. For those in the public gallery, it's the doors over there. And for us, we're going to follow Seamus, who will tell us where to go and will guide us to safety. There are no drills planned, as I said. So if it happens, it's the real thing. A couple of announcements from me. Since the last meeting, I'm incredibly pleased to have made 2 appointments to the board. Laura Shoaf, who's here CB, was appointed from the 29th of June. I welcome Laura to her first meeting of the board. This is a really exciting board. No other board comes anywhere near the excitement on this board. You will love it. I've also appointed Alison Munro, CB, from the 7th of September. Further information on their appointment to committees and panels is provided elsewhere on the agenda. And Laura, just feel free to speak during the course of the meeting, ask questions, comments. You know, we welcome and encourage that. A couple of more announcements from me. One on fares freeze. I want to thank the Commissioner for his support. I've extended the bus and tram fares freeze for another 4 months until the 1st of November. This, alongside the brand new weekend hopper fare trial being introduced over the school holidays, will make travel cheaper and easier than ever this summer. Buses are the most used form of public transport in London, and we'll continue to invest in them, as well as trams, to deliver greener vehicles, a more efficient network, more reliable service and better customer experience, which leads me nicely on to the consequences of this heatwave on bus drivers, bus users and so forth. In the Commissioner's report, Andy will talk about the work he's been doing with his team, working with the trade unions. I want to thank Unite for their fantastic collegiate way working with us, with the bus operators and with others. And if it's okay, we'll do it later on rather than now. Thank you. And can I thank all those who've been working with us to make sure all forms of public transport are bearable during this heat wave. Yesterday was the 21st anniversary of the horrendous 7/7 terror attacks in 2005. TfL hosted and took part in a number of memorial ceremonies at each of the sites of the bombings at Aldgate, at Edgware Road, King's Cross and Russell Square stations and Tavistock Square. I joined the Commissioner and many others at the memorial in Hyde Park. TfL will always remember the 52 people whose lives were cruelly stolen and killed at the hands of terrorists, and over 800 who were injured. Tribute was paid to the heroism of colleagues, the emergency services and members of the public who helped those in need. Their bravery and selflessness must also never be forgotten. Safety is paramount at TfL. If members have any safety issues to raise in relation to items on the agenda or within the remit of the board, then please let me know at the start of any particular item or under matters arising. If there are any other safety issues, then please discuss them with Andrea to my left or the appropriate member of the Executive Committee after the meeting. And just to remind colleagues, we forget, in between meetings, you are my mystery customers. And so if you see things happening that are good or things that you've got an issue with, please let us know so we can respond and react to them as well. I mean, Andy always likes to hear good comments or areas that can be improved genuinely, and so did the Exco and stuff. But it's important that you feel you can get in touch with the team to let us know about any issues, good, bad, but particularly around safety, that we should be addressing. Apologies for absence. Andrea, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. So apologies for absence have been received by Mike O'Donnell, Mark Phillips and Tanya Joseph. Carolyn Dwyer and Professor Arthur Kay, as you said, are joining by Teams and are welcome to participate in the discussions, but do not count towards the quorum, and the meeting is quorate.
Okay, we're now going to move on, if that's okay, with declarations of interest. Andrea.
Thank you. So members' individual register of interests are published on the TfL website and are all up to date. There have been 3 changes to members' declarations since the last meeting. Deborah Harris is no longer a member of the Nursing and Midwifery Council. Tanya Joseph has been appointed to the Sky Foundation, and Mari Pye has been appointed as an independent member of the Planning Committee for the Oxford Street Development Corporation. We're not aware of any items on the agenda where members need to declare a specific interest and leave the meeting during its discussion, but if members do have any such interest, they're invited to declare it now.
Just to remind colleagues, I always advise whatever board I'm on just to err on the side of caution. I think it's better to over-declare rather than under-declare. Just come and have a whisper with Andrea if you're just in doubt and stuff, and that's the smart thing to do. Any declarations of interest that not dealt with? Thanks, colleagues. Minutes of the meeting of the board held on the 26th of May. Are colleagues who were here happy they accurately reflect the meeting as it was? I can see nodding heads. Thanks, colleagues. I'll sign those in the normal way. Matters arising, actions list and use of delegated authority. Andrea.
Thank you, Chair. So since the last meeting, there have been no uses of Chair's action nor any mayoral directions to the board other than one I will mention shortly. On the 11th of June, in your role as Mayor, you appointed, as you mentioned, Laura Shoaf, CBE, to the board from the 29th of June and Alison Munro, CBE, from the 7th of September. Following their appointment, there has been one exercise of specific authority delegated by the board to the Deputy Chair of TfL relating to the appointments to committees and panels. And I'll just ask Seb to say a few words on those appointments.
Seb. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Chair. On the 26th of June 2026, in consultation with the relevant chairs, I exercised the authority delegated to me by the board on the 4th of February 2026 to make appointments to the committees and panels of the board. Given the specific skill sets of the newly appointed members, the appointments to committees and panels will replicate the appointments of the members that they are succeeding. I'm extremely grateful to Omid and Mark for taking on the roles of Chair and Vice Chair of the Safety and Security Panel while the appointments were made. Laura will chair the panel from the 7th of September, and Omid will revert back to his role as Vice Chair. And owing to Omid's recognised expertise and leadership in AI and technology innovation, I've asked him to provide strategic counsel on that subject and to help inform the development of TfL's AI and technology strategy. In discussion with Arthur and the relevant chairs, Mari and Mike, Arthur will stand down from the Customer, Sustainability and Operations panel today, and the board is asked to appoint him to the Finance Committee. Andrea.
Thanks, Seb.
So, if approved by the board, the membership of the committees and panels are set out in Appendix 1 to the paper. As mentioned by the Chair in the announcements on the 2nd of July, the papers for this meeting, after the papers for this meeting were published, the Mayor made a mayoral decision in relation to fares changes. This directs TfL to implement a fares freeze and fares change from the 5th of July. These changes extend the fares freeze on the bus and tram fares agreed in March 26, and a further mayoral direction that was issued on that date. These dates are from the 5th of July to the 1st of November to continue to support Londoners on the lower incomes with the cost of living, after which bus and tram fares will increase by 5.7% overall, which is below the overall RP-linked increase on other modes that took effect in March 2026. The decision also corrected some minor administrative errors which were in the previous MD. Those corrections do not change the overall average increase of 6% on tube and rail pay-as-you-go fares under the Mayor's control, and no customers were overcharged in relation to that administrative error. All other fares for TfL tube and rail network journeys and on the IFS Cloud cable car, which were in the approved previous MD, all remain the same. Just in relation, finally, to the actions list, that sets out progress against the actions which are either completed or have target dates against them. Members are invited to raise any matters arising or safety issues not covered elsewhere on the agenda.
Okay, that may be the longest matters arising actions list and use of delegated authority in TfL's 26-year history. Any questions or comments to General Counsel, not to me? Okay, I've got to go through the formalities, I'm afraid. So the board is asked to note the paper and the updated actions list and to note the appointments of Laura Shoaf, CEB, to the board from the 29th of June and Alison Munro, CEB, to the board from the 7th of September. Note the exercise of authority delegated by the board to the Deputy Chair of TfL to appoint Laura and Alison to committees and panels. Approve the appointment of Professor Arthur Kay to the Finance Committee and note that he will stand down from the Customer Sustainability and Operations Panel, and note the updated membership of the board, committees and panels as set out in Appendix 1. Is that agreed by colleagues? Thank you so much. I'm now going to move on to the Commissioner's report. Andy, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And firstly, I'd also like to join you in taking a moment to remember the victims of the 7/7 London bombings. It was an honour to once again participate in yesterday's wreath-laying ceremony at Hyde Park and join those at Tavistock Square to be able to pay our respects on behalf of TfL, while Claire and other senior leaders attended all the station memorials at the same time. We simply won't ever forget the 52 innocent lives that were lost on 7/7, the hundreds who were injured, and the many, many more who've been affected by the events of that day. I'd also like to echo the Chair's welcome to our newly appointed board members. Laura, who joined on the 29th of June, is here with us today, and Alison Munro, who will join on the 7th of September. And I very much look forward to working with you both, as I know the whole executive do as well. I'd like to begin my update, as always, with safety. The safety of our customers, colleagues and everyone who uses London's transport network remains our first priority and the foundation on which everything else we do depends. I'm very sorry to report to the board that on the 7th of June, a bus driver was walking along the pavement beside Ealing Road, an A40 slip road in Ealing, whilst travelling to work when they were fatally injured in a collision with a car. The car driver was arrested at the scene. I know the board will join me and all of us in giving our thoughts and condolences to his family, friends and colleagues. All of us at TfL are deeply saddened by the rail collision which occurred in Bedford last month when train driver Sean Burton was sadly killed. We are thinking of everyone affected, including those who have lost a loved one and those recovering from injuries and the communities impacted by this tragic event. I also want to pay tribute to the emergency responders and railway colleagues who have worked with such professionalism and dedication in the aftermath. Britain's railways are very safe, and incidents such as this are thankfully very rare. We stand with our partners across the transport industry, in particular East Midlands Railway and Network Rail. It is vital that no one speculates on the cause of the collision, and we await the full investigation by the RAIB and the BTP so that we can all learn from it as an industry and ensure it never happens again. On Monday, I joined a number of colleagues and spoke and participated in a panel discussion at our third Vision Zero Summit, the first since we launched our Vision Zero Action Plan 2. The summit was an opportunity to build advocacy and support for the plan, as well as to do a deep dive to ensure stakeholders and boroughs understand how they can support us in its delivery. It was well attended by councillors and officers from 25 boroughs, 13 road safety organisations, assembly members and our policing partners, amongst others. As I said on the day, there is still more that we can and need to do. We also know that what we're doing is working. We've tested it and the evidence is clear. It's absolutely taking us in the right direction. On our roads, the latest provisional casualty data provides some encouragement. The number of people killed on London's roads fell by nearly 13% in 2025, from 110 to 96. And while any loss of life is unacceptable, this represents the second lowest number of road fatalities outside the pandemic. And although serious injuries remain too high and did increase during the year, the reduction in fatalities demonstrates that the Vision Zero approach is continuing to have a positive impact. Since 2015, we estimate that 262 deaths have been prevented through combined action by TfL, boroughs, police and wider partners. Nevertheless, through safer speeds, safer streets, safer vehicles, safer behaviours and stronger enforcement, we will continue to work with boroughs and policing partners to eliminate death and serious injury from London's roads by 2041. In June, we announced a series of safety improvements on our buses, with the launch of the latest version of our internationally recognised bus safety standard. The evidence now clearly shows that buses equipped with bus safety standard technologies are delivering substantially greater casualty reductions than comparable routes. Routes using these vehicles experience casualty reductions of approximately 41%, rising to nearly 48% where camera monitoring systems were also fitted. This demonstrates the real-world value of innovation and investment in safety, and London is leading the way. Since its introduction in 2018, our bus safety standard has ensured London has one of the safest bus networks in the world. Going forward, requirements set out in the updated standard, like advanced emergency braking, acceleration suppression technology, driver fatigue and distraction prevention, and a new cab driver seat design with integrated cooling, will help make our roads and our bus network even safer for everyone. Our safeguarding programme also continues to expand. We are rolling out our new training framework, which is designed to help frontline colleagues identify vulnerability and intervene appropriately. Around 170 colleagues are now being trained every week. We have expanded vulnerable patrols, continued trials using targeted CCTV monitoring and enforcement activity, and we continue to see examples of exceptional professionalism from colleagues across the network who intervene to support vulnerable customers and people in distress. Turning now to the wider organisation, it has been a period of significant achievement. One of the most important developments has been the continued progress of our major transport investment programmes. It is hard to believe, but the Silvertown Tunnel opened just over a year ago. The first new crossing built east of Tower Bridge in over 30 years, yet now an integral part of our road network. As outlined in my report, we've undertaken a 12-month review of user charges now that Silvertown has been operational for 12 months to assess if the user charges are performing in accordance with our forecasts. It considers evidence relating to the charged crossings, alternative river crossings and the wider road network. In line with the DCO requirements, we have consulted with the Silvertown Tunnel Implementation Group, STIG, on our conclusions following the review. Having now considered the report, its conclusions and STIG feedback, I can confirm I have endorsed the review's conclusion that the charging scheme is operating as expected. We will shortly publish a report summarising the review and its outcome on our website, alongside STIG member feedback. We will, of course, keep the board updated on this. On the Piccadilly line upgrade, we reached an important milestone by operating 4 new trains simultaneously during a testing period for the first time. This moves us another step closer to introducing the new fleet within the next 12 months and transforming the customer experience on one of London's busiest railways. The DLR programme is also progressing. Following extensive investigation, testing and modification work, we continue preparations for the phased return to service of the new B23 trains later this summer, following subject to final approvals and assurance. We have also launched consultation on the proposed DLR extension to Thamesmead, a project which the board will know has the potential to unlock around 25,000 new homes and 10,000 new jobs, while improving connectivity across East London. I'm immensely proud of how colleagues have supported London during another exceptionally busy and exceptionally hot period. The city has hosted major festivals, concerts, sporting events and demonstrations. We supported some of the largest events of the year, including Arsenal's Victory Parade, which attracted 750,000 people, and Harry Styles' record-breaking Wembley concerts. Throughout, our teams worked closely with event organisers, local authorities, emergency services and policing partners to ensure London kept moving safely and efficiently. We did, however, face some operational challenges. Industrial action was called by bus station controllers in May and by train operators of the RMT on the London Underground during the spring and early summer. Despite this, we managed to deliver a significant level of service across most lines, while the Elizabeth Line, DLR, London Overground trams and buses continued to operate normally with extra services where they could. We've also endured and are continuing to endure extreme hot weather and record temperatures. We do have comprehensive hot weather plans in place to protect our infrastructure and maintain reliable services. This includes enhanced monitoring of track temperatures and additional checks on key assets, supported by a comprehensive plan for customers and, of course, our colleagues across TfL. I recognise how difficult it is for our colleagues and customers during this hot weather, and we are focused on making it as comfortable as we can. I realise it has been particularly challenging for our bus drivers. To help support them, we have been in regular contact with all operators and our trade unions. All operators have implemented their hot weather plans to support their bus drivers. We've reiterated to operators the importance of supporting drivers, including checking air cooling systems are working, and TfL has carried out its own inspections of this issue. We have also always advised drivers that if they don't feel they can drive their bus safely because of the heat and the temperature, that they should stop, contact their controller and work with them to do whatever is necessary until it is safe for them to drive. Moreover, during the significant heat warnings, we suspended all reliability penalties on our operators so they can focus on the welfare of their drivers. Although this resulted in a less reliable service in some cases, we strongly believe it was the correct decision in this situation. Although the extreme temperatures caused disruption, activating our hot weather plans during these periods helps us to respond to incidents and manage operational issues that impacted our services. And we also worked closely with Network Rail so that we were aligned in terms of managing the impact to service. We also continue to enhance the customer experience through investment in technology and connectivity. Around 60% of underground tube stations now have mobile coverage, with further sections of the Bakerloo, Circle, District and Metropolitan lines coming online during this reporting period. Customers are increasingly able to stay connected throughout their journeys, something that was unimaginable only a few weeks ago. I'd also like to update the board on an incident we had at Westbourne Park bus garage 2 weeks ago, where an electric bus caught fire whilst on charge. The investigation into the cause is underway, but the resulting fire did cause some significant damage to the underside of the A40 Westway, and as an absolute precaution, we had to close the westbound carriageway. We are working at pace with our own experts and those externally to investigate the damage, see what remedial work is required, and to see what options are available to bring at least some of the carriageway back to service. I want to apologise to stakeholders for any disruptions being caused, but also highlight that whilst drivers may see the road closed off and may not see anybody working there, that is because they are working inside the structure doing their inspections. As part of London Climate Action Week, we showcase the breadth of our environmental work, demonstrating how public transport investment supports cleaner air, carbon reduction, biodiversity and climate adaptation. Transport remains central to achieving London's environmental ambitions. We reached a significant milestone in June, with the 3,000th zero-emission bus now operating across the capital. We have the largest zero-emission bus fleet in Western Europe, and depending on the day of the week, whole of Europe, and depending who's going to go and count Moscow's bus fleet. And around 1/3 of those buses have entered service in the past year alone. This is an extraordinary transformation from just 30 zero-emission buses in 2016 and demonstrates London's leadership in sustainable transport. It is also a major contribution to improving air quality and reducing carbon emissions across our city. Claire and Lorna Murphy, our Director of Buses, also welcomed His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales and Robert Irwin to Waterloo Bus Garage to see the 3000th zero-emission bus, and then Claire escorted them to the Earthshot Prize Impact Assembly at the Guildhall. Alongside this, I was delighted to be joined by Seb and the Deputy Mayor for Environment and Energy, Mette Coburn, as we officially opened our new electric vehicle charging hub at Hatton Cross. With 12 ultra-rapid charging bays capable of providing approximately 100 miles of range in just 5 minutes, it represents a major step forward for London's charging infrastructure and will be the first of many to come. Meanwhile, we've completed the conversion of all bus shelter lighting across London to LED technology, covering approximately 12,100 bus shelters. This initiative alone is expected to reduce annual carbon emissions by more than 1,000 tonnes, while creating brighter and more welcoming environments for customers. Beyond transport operations, we continue to improve London's natural environment. The area of wildflower verges across our road network has doubled in the last 2 years to around 520,000 square metres, equivalent to approximately 72 football pitches, to use a World Cup analogy. These areas support biodiversity, reduce maintenance emissions, and contribute to a more climate-resilient city. I'd also like to highlight the huge contribution of our colleagues over this period. Across every part of the organisation, colleagues continue to demonstrate professionalism, commitment and public service. Our Devices for Schools programme has now donated more than 4,000 devices to over 90 schools, helping tackle digital exclusion both in London and internationally. More recently, over 500 devices have been donated to communities in the Gambia. This is an incredibly notable cause, and I'm sure you'll join me in congratulating our colleague, Evren Altunok, who received the British Empire Medal in honour of his outstanding leadership, innovation and altruism at the helm of this work. Our colleague Claire Lugren was also recognised with the British Empire Medal in the King's Birthday Honours for her efforts in making TfL a great place to work for all. She took the role of Chair of Outbound, our LGBTQ+ colleague network group in 2023, and led on significant events like LGBTQ+ History Month, Trans Awareness Week, and our participation in Pride in London, whilst also undertaking significant community work where she lives. Alongside them, Shakila Scarlett, Senior Operations and Change Manager for the Woolwich Ferry, received an MBE for her services to education. As a school governor, Shakila was recognised for promoting diversity while advocating creating opportunities for young people. I'm immensely proud to see them all recognised for their tireless work in making London a more sustainable and inclusive place for all. We've continued to strengthen our inclusive culture through Mental Health Awareness Week, Carers Week activities and celebrations during Pride Month. Along with Claire and Fiona, we had the pleasure of joining other colleagues representing TfL at Pride in London celebrations last Saturday. The energy across the city was incredible, with Londoners and visitors coming together to support the LGBTQ+ community. It was brilliant to walk alongside our Pride bus, designed by Depot Services and Logistics Manager Michael Dipre, and I'd like to thank everyone who helped bring it to life, as well as to all those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this year's event a success. Looking further ahead, we are also investing heavily in the future workforce. We now have around 750 people across our early careers programmes and have made 134 offers through this year's recruitment campaign, helping we continue to attract the skills and talent required for the future. I was immensely proud to learn that we climbed 10 places in this year's top apprenticeship employers ranking to number 26 in the country. This is a huge achievement, and I'd like to thank everyone involved in making this happen. Finally, a word on London's continued and growing international influence. Last month, I should say, I had the privilege of joining the Mayor on a visit to Singapore and Tokyo. The trip was an opportunity to strengthen relationships with transport operators and policymakers, and for making the case for investment in London's infrastructure and property. I previously reported to the board that London had won the 2026 Lee Kuan Yew World City Prize. In Singapore, it was a privilege to attend the World City Summit, where the Mayor collected this prestigious global award, with London's transport system, notably the Elizabeth Line, and the implementation of ULEZ being specifically referenced. I also took the opportunity to meet with SBS Transit, one of the country's public transport operators, and visit their fantastic new 5-storey, multi-storey electrified bus depot, as well as the senior leadership of their parent group, Comfort Delgro and Arup. In addition, I spoke at an event organised by JLL in partnership with London Partners and Opportunity London to highlight the amazing investment opportunities our city has to offer in both real estate and transport infrastructure. Later in Tokyo, I met with our Japanese partners, Sumitomo Corporation and Tokyo Metro, both of which are in the GTS joint venture with Go Ahead Group running the Elizabeth Line. This was an opportunity to exchange insights and discuss investment and operational matters. And of course, I was delighted to join the Mayor in unveiling a unique station roundel at Ueno Station to celebrate the upcoming centenary of the Tokyo Metro. Overall, it was a fantastic trip to showcase London and foster greater international investment and collaboration. In other news, through TfL Consulting, we are now supporting major transport and planning programmes overseas, including Dublin's Metrolink project and transit-oriented development initiatives in the Philippines. At the same time, London's leadership within the international transport community has been strengthened through Lilli Matson's confirmation as Deputy President of the International Association of Public Transport. Huge congratulations to Lilli on her appointment. Finally, for more than 200 years, London's public transport has shaped the capital and improved people's lives in so many ways, which is why I'm sure the board is as delighted as I am with the London Transport Museum's recent announcement on LTM 50, an ambitious transformation of its iconic Covent Garden home ahead of the museum's 50th anniversary in 2030. It was a privilege to speak at the launch event last month, where the museum unveiled an artist's impression of the reimagined building with a dramatic new entrance and more space for improved galleries and learning experiences. As ever, it's been an incredibly busy period, as you can see, and my enormous thanks and that of the executive goes to all those colleagues across our organisation for everything they deliver for our great city. Thank you, and I look forward to taking your questions.
Well, look, thanks, Andy. When you read the Commissioner's report and hear what he says, you realise that just the breadth of work TfL does, which is quite remarkable. For easy when I go around the room, I saw Peter first. I'll just go around if that's okay. Yeah, Peter, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andy. Very comprehensive report, as always, and just echo what the Chair said there in terms of it is a huge breadth of stuff that's going on in TfL, and the team is to be congratulated. Can I add my personal congratulations to Lilli in the Deputy President's role of UITP, having sat on the UITP Policy Board a long number of years ago. It's a very prestigious appointment, so really well done. And I think personally for you, but also in recognition of the regard in which TfL is held worldwide in that community. I know that personally, having seen it from the other side of the world, and it's really good to see you in that seat, so well done. I think also recognition, as it's mentioned in the Commissioner's report, of the Zero Harm Conference with suppliers that was held back on the 29th of June. And I think that's an indication, colleagues, isn't it, of you can only do safety in partnership and in collaboration. It is not a one-trick pony. It is really important to get that supplier base round the table. That's a great initiative, so well done for that. And I had one question which follows an anecdote. As the Mayor knows, I do ride buses from time to time up the front of the bus. I was on a very hot 259 from King's Cross to Finsbury Park last week. And well done to the driver for a number of reasons. Well done because it was really hot on that bus. But as we went down Caledonian Road, a pedestrian emerged from the footpath looked right into the direction of traffic that was coming to their right, but ignored the fact that there was a bus coming from the left. And the driver did very well to avoid a collision with that pedestrian. They both kind of realised that they were going to collide, and the driver stopped in good order. And it just made me look at the Vision Zero action plan and went, well, what would actually have stopped that in the Vision Zero action plan? I know we've got a 20-mile-an-hour limit down Caledonian Road. I know we've dealt with a streetscape. But it took me back to my earlier days of being a school person, a member of the Tufty Club, reading my Green Cross code, and just made me wonder, what were we doing about that sort of thing? And when I reread the Vision Zero action plan, I couldn't quite find that. So the question is, what would we do to prevent that type of collision in the future? Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Andy, can I take 3 questions or comments? Keith next, yeah.
Thank you very much. As always, a fantastic report and full of stuff that's to be celebrated. So thank you for that. I have a question on Vision Zero, which kind of Peter's already sort of asked, but I'll ask it anyway. That's all right. And my other 2 things were really just to kind of celebrate some progress. One is around the trauma risk management program. I think that's been a fantastic initiative. When you think about not just what staff experience in the worst case situations, but also kind of more day-to-day kind of trauma that they experience, it seems to me that that's been a very effective program, and I think all power to you for introducing that, and may that continue and develop further. The other one is, and it's kind of almost hidden away, not hidden away, but it's a small bit in your report, and that's around dial-a-ride. And I think, I know Mari and I have been working with the team around the assisted transport strategy, and it just seems to me to be something that's kind of seems very minor and small, but not very important. But actually, it's a huge opportunity to improve something that is greatly valued by many Londoners and an increasing number of Londoners as we have an ageing population, connecting people with healthcare and social life, impacting on positively on loneliness, but also on people's well-being. So just to recognise and celebrate that. And my question was on Vision Zero. And that is that, as rates of reduction towards meeting the target slow, so the trajectory kind of changes and becomes a little bit more flat, that makes it very difficult. Those marginal gains become more difficult. So it's really about kind of understanding what opportunities there are to kind of reduce those statistics still further, the priority areas when you can target things that may not, that seem more likely to happen. And I've said this at many meetings, and CSWAP included, about the activity of cyclists who may not be frequent cyclists, but we celebrate the fact that there are more people cycling, but who don't necessarily know the rules of the road. And I said at one meeting that I was sitting on a bus coming to that meeting, and I think 80% of the cyclists that I watched through the windows failed to stop at red lights. And that, to me, they were on e-bikes mostly, without any helmets or anything else, and that just seems to me to be a real risk area that's likely to grow. So it's about how do we then educate. And I know there's stuff in here and in the later report on safety about educating cyclists as well as anybody else about the highway code and the fact that red lights apply to you too, and all of those things. So it's really kind of trying to understand how we get those marginal gains the lower we get. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. Last question in this round. Jim, over to you, mate.
The first one's buses, and I don't know if it's coming up later in the agenda or if it's an omission, but I would like to actually flag up autonomous vehicles as well, which you didn't speak to. On the buses issue, I think we'll all echo what you said, our appreciation for the staff on TfL and also on the buses getting through that heatwave and keeping the whole system operating. I'd like to specifically talk about buses. I know you've got some discussions going on with my union, Unite, and I don't want to sort of really impact that too much, but it seems to me that we're not getting anywhere fast. And these heat waves, they're coming, they're more frequent, amber and red alerts. And if you do travel on buses in London, it's very uncomfortable, specifically for the driver. So 2 areas, one on new bus procurement. I know you want a fully electric fleet. Is it a requirement to have some form of air conditioning on new bus procurement? And is there any retrofit kit that you're looking at to improve the heat within the buses that are operating at the moment? And I say that because you did mention air cooling systems. Do we really believe air cooling systems on the buses are working properly? Because it doesn't seem to be like that if you're a passenger, and certainly if you're not in the cabin driving that bus. So does that need to be looked at in more detail? Are we trying to find a retrofit kit, that we can add to it, specifically for the drivers, obviously, because we don't want driver fatigue on buses. So where are we with that? Firstly, I'll come on to the AV if that's okay in a second, but maybe I can have a bit more detail about what's happening on that front.
Sorry, did you want to make your AV comment now so Andy can respond?
Okay, on the AV, first of all, I think it was good, Sadiq, that you raised it a couple of weeks ago on local radio. Not about the way it's been implemented, about control, who's going to be in control of this. And at the moment, it's a big question mark, and I think we'll be all supportive if it's local government in London, specifically the mayor, that is in control of regulation. So I don't know if there's been any developments there. I do know, though, that I've seen a tweet from one of Andy Burnham's team where he echoes those sentiments and he's concerned about the rate of travel, so to speak, of AV at the moment without any democratic debate. So it was good that you raised that issue there. It's good that Andy Burnham seems to be interested in that same issue. But we still don't appear to be getting any feedback about where we are with the pilot scheme. And even what are the dates for implementation, all we seem to be getting is drip-fed stories from Waymo about when they wish to introduce it, as if they're in control of the process. So is TfL in control of that process? Have we got a specific date when these vehicles will be operating driverless, human driverless on our streets?
Thanks, Jim. Andy, feel free to bring in colleagues as and when, but over to you.
Thanks for the questions. I'll just put Lilli and Claire on notice for both Vision Zero and some of the bus elements, and Alex probably on the AVs. So, Peter, first, thank you again for the recognition for Lilli and for the comments. And if you can give us the specifics, we'll make sure that the bus driver of the Route 259 that you're on, we'll make sure that they get recognised for their actions, because we have to recognise, whilst there are always, unfortunately, some incidents and collisions, far more are avoided because of the expertise and professionalism of the bus driving community. And we are doing a lot around, obviously, trying to avoid collisions in the first place, but equally, we have to assume that collisions are potentially going to happen, and therefore even more focus around if the bus is involved in a collision, how can the bus reduce the impact of that? And Claire, I don't know if you want to touch on that. And also perhaps at the same time cover Jim's question around air conditioning and design of buses going forward as well.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, Peter. So in terms of what could be done differently, in part of Bus Safety Standard 2, there's two things. So first of all, Bus Safety Standard 1 has got a front-end redesign of the bus, which I think you're aware of. So if there had been a collision with that pedestrian, the risk of somebody being pulled under is now reduced dramatically, and that's the statistic that Andy was talking about earlier. The reduction since the bus safety standard has come in is proving, positive. But autonomous emergency braking is something that we're having fitted to buses, and I was at Millbrook last month where we launched Bus Safety Standard 2, and to see 3 different bus manufacturers showing the ability of the bus to brake if somebody steps out was really impressive. And actually what we're trying to tweak now is the rate at which that braking occurs, so that obviously it doesn't throw the passengers within the bus forward as the bus stops. So it's quite a delicate and difficult thing to do, but the manufacturers are really coming on board to do that. So I think as we move forward and new buses have this fitted, it's going to make a massive difference. Obviously it's not going to happen overnight, but it will make a difference, so that will certainly help. But to Andy's point, we need to make the impact lesser on the individual, so that's part of the first phase. Just going back, Jim, thank you for your points around buses, it is incredibly challenging out there. So we've got an amber weather warning now right through till Sunday. So we've been meeting with the bus operating companies. And as you know, we've relaxed all of the bus performance regime during these extreme heat events so that bus drivers can take breaks when they need them, as Andy says. So we're saying to them, if you're feeling unwell, if you're feeling fatigued, you must stop the bus, and we won't penalise the operator for that. But we're also we're having additional cooling system checks, which is what you mentioned. And the cooling system isn't as good as we'd like it to be. So in the new buses, it's air conditioning that's been prescribed. We've actually set that at quite a challenging, once again, for the manufacturer's level to make sure that we can adapt to this changing climate. So that will be coming with all new vehicles. We're also doing a review of the red days that we had a couple of weeks ago to see what that did to services, to see whether there's something we do with bus services during extreme heat so that we can perhaps relax the service to enable it to be easier for drivers to operate. We're looking at things like cooling towels for drivers, cooling vests, and we've set up a new task force that starts on Monday. There's a meeting with Unite and the operators, which will meet every 2 weeks, getting everyone's views on what we can do, because this is going to be a sustained challenge that we're going to have until we get all new buses into the fleet. So you mentioned aircon or air cooling retrofit. We are going to look at that. Funding's challenging, but we recognise that this is going to be a challenge for the summers to come. So all of those things are in the mix, and it's really important that we're listening to our drivers and we're making sure that we can do whatever we can. So I'm hoping that this new task force is really going to bring through some great ideas as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. I'll come back to AVs in a minute, Jim, if that's all right. Keith, thank you for, firstly, recognition of the TRIM programme. It is so important that we provide the necessary support for colleagues who are involved in dealing with tragic incidents across the network. And in particular, actually, Claire is also doing some additional work, particularly for our emergency response unit, who clearly are probably involved in a far higher number of these incidents than anybody else, and really experience some horrific circumstances. So making sure we provide them with the support that they need going forward. Thank you also for the, I'd say it's more than a shout out for Dial a Ride, and to you and Mari for all your engagement with them. Dial a Ride are a fantastic team across the city, and we forget when we talk about buses. Buses includes Dial a Ride, it also includes Victoria Coach Station, two elements of the buses directorate that Lorna leads that actually probably don't get the attention and positive shout outs that they deserve. Dial a Ride is such a critical service for the communities it serves, and I'd really encourage any board members who haven't been on a Dial a Ride visit to go and visit one of the depots or go out on a journey with the drivers. The drivers are just amazing in terms of what they do, so thank you for that. And on the Vision Zero trajectory, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'll ask Lilli to touch on this in a bit more detail. I'm of a similar vintage and remember coming up with the Green Cross Code, and I mean, when I was younger, cars didn't have wing mirrors and seatbelts weren't installed and all sorts of things. And I've been quite vocal, both personally, I was on Monday at the Vision Zero Summit, but I have been also with DFT colleagues. We need, I think, a national campaign on increasing awareness, particularly for the younger generation, for new drivers, around the criticality of sticking to the highway code, speed awareness, drink and drug driving, is completely unacceptable. Wearing seatbelts, we have seen tragically an increase in the number of car occupants who've been seriously injured over the last year or so. We're working with the Met to understand exactly what the causes of those injuries are, but we think it's behavioural in some cases. And on cyclists, again, Will Norman, the Walking and Cycling Commissioner, who is an incredibly strong advocate of Vision Zero, was at the Vision Zero Summit as well. And he too recognises there's a lot we need to do to educate and encourage the cycling community, both regular cyclists, but actually you see in weather conditions like we have at the minute, a lot more people take to a bike who perhaps are less used to it. E-bikes bring a different dimension to traditional bikes. And also, there is no requirement for a cyclist to know the highway code. And again, I think that's another opportunity for us to sort of reinforce that, but also work with Department of Transport colleagues to see what opportunities there are there. And as you know, in other cities, helmets are mandatory. They're not in the UK, so there's a lot of opportunity there, I think, to make a difference. That's my own personal opinion. I know it's shared by others when you think about how we can try and influence and drive that forward. But Lilli, would you like to give some more background?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you, both Peter, for your comments and Keith for the questions around Vision Zero. So, just building on what you've said, Andy, London does continue to make really, really good progress. And it's due to the delivery of a system. So first of all, just to reassure you, behaviour and education is part of that system. Indeed, there's absolutely amazing work that goes on through the London Transport Museum, engaging with almost all primary schools in London and a vast majority of the secondary schools as well, giving that kind of basic road safety education that we're talking about how to navigate the road network safely, completely based on key stage education and very much welcomed by the educational institutes that they work with. So that basic education is there. Is there a need to do more? Absolutely. And in fact, I know that Will is running a strategic workshop with your team, Alex, this week on how do we actually really get into that psychology of cyclist behaviour in particular. So it's an ongoing challenge, but relevant to all road users. I think behaviour is really important. We just need to recognise when we get into the detail and we look at how the collisions happen, 66% of the vehicles involved are cars. So all of the actions that we take around reducing car use and reducing car speed is the most important system-wide change that we will make. And that just takes me quickly on to your second point was, are we plateauing? Is it slowing down? To a degree, some elements are slowing down, but there's actually a change in who's being injured. So as there's more and more people cycling, don't forget that cycling increased by 12% just in 1 year last year, that we are seeing more people injured, but the rate of injury per every journey is actually still reducing. So long story short, actually a lot of changes have been delivered particularly in central and inner London. There is still a lot to go at in outer London with reducing speed limits. There's at least 12 boroughs who don't have 20-mile-an-hour speed limits. That would be a system-wide change that would really progress in quite a big leap forward in terms of safety, as well as some of the other changing road space type schemes that we do. Oxford Streets can be a great road safety scheme as well as a great scheme for other reasons. So I'm completely confident that we continue to make progress, but it all needs to be driven by the data and really understanding where it's increasing, where it's reducing, and the geographical spread as well.
And finally, Jim, just coming back to your point on AVs. So, we are exactly in the same place as the Mayor in terms of, London needs to be in control and regulate AVs. There's a difference between an automatic car that is driving for private use versus clearly an autonomous vehicle driving for taxi and private hire reasons. That will have to conform to the regulations that we have. That's work that's underway. We haven't approved any as yet. But I'll ask Alex just to touch on it more generally.
Yeah, you will see two fleets out in London at the moment where they are kind of testing the use of autonomous vehicles in Waze, which is a partnership with Uber, and they are looking to have these vehicles operating with a driver there, someone who can it will be on automatic mode, but it will have a driver to intervene, and that will be using existing regulation, and that potentially could happen relatively soon, but as I say, it will have a driver in the vehicle. Waymo are also testing and get a digital footprint for the city for fully automated vehicles, and that will rely on the automated passenger service permit system that we are in debate with government on. And the key issue for there is, as Andy has said, is our level of control of those vehicles when they're out on the London roads, really. We believe, as the Transport Authority for the city, we should be determining whether those permits should be issued, but also if there's a problem, withdrawing them. We have warm words from the DfT to give us some comfort there, but what we're doing is we're going through the kind of detail of that with our legal advisors about how robust is that mechanism and how do we make it robust so that if there is a problem, we have the right to intervene and stop them. or say that they can only use certain parts of the city, that kind of thing. So put in the appropriate conditions. So it's still very much a live debate, and there is no fixed date for when they'll be coming. I think you've alluded to the kind of impatience from the supply chain to getting them in fairly quickly, but in reality, I think there's probably still a lot to work through, certainly on the Waymo side. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the next round of questions. Carolyn, I've seen your hand. Don't worry, I'll come to you shortly. Can I, before I do, welcome students from Chilrick Primary School? I'm told it's the best school in London. Is that right? Yeah. So this is the Transport Performance Board. So if you think about the buses, the tubes, the trains, the trams, the roads, all the good things is thanks to me. Anything challenging is down to these people here. But you're most welcome, and enjoy the board meeting. Who do I see next? Anurag, and then Omid, and then bring in Deborah. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Andy, huge breadth in your report as always. I saw the stats on fare evasion. They're coming down, which is good. And Claire, yesterday, for the first time on the district line on the Wimbledon branch, there were 2 fare inspectors. And the response from everyone on the train was fantastic. Everyone said, it's great to see fare inspectors. And I went up and spoke to them, and they referenced they'd had a conversation with you, I think, just yesterday. So I said, I'll have them definitely bring it out in the board meeting. So well done.
Can I just Andy, you can't have TfL staff following the board around.
So that's great to see. That's just a comment. On Vision Zero, can I just pick up something? I think there's a lot of emphasis on things we do, but I think we forget that a core aspect of Vision Zero is the rules and regulations we have in this city. And a lot of fatalities are prevented actually because people follow traffic rules and our traffic is orderly. If you want to see fatalities and if you want to see disorderly traffic, go to the streets of most cities around the world, right? I've grown up in India, so I can say this. Go to Bombay, go to Delhi, go to Calcutta, go to any city in India. No one follows any traffic rules whatsoever. And I'm starting to see a pattern in London where people are openly flouting rules and nothing's being done about it. And it's really good to see school children, because I've posted on LinkedIn yesterday on my walk home, and there's a school at the end of my road. There was not a single space to walk. This was the picture I took. The entire sidewalk was full of Lime bikes and forest bikes. And school children on their way home were on the road. And I was following them. So we can talk about Vision Zero, but if we don't enforce basic rules and regulations and take back our public spaces from these companies who are littering and causing pollution on our streets, all the good work we do will go down the drain. And I know it's a very complex problem. TfL doesn't have control of what councils, etc., do. But we are a very powerful voice. We can lead on this, and we can use the tools we have on our hands to do something about this. These companies have the data. They know instantly where their bikes are. If we force them, they can remove this. Second point, delivery drivers. Apps, there's a anecdotal evidence, but I've seen it across. There's a bus stop in front of where I live, near where I live, and there's always delivery trucks parked there blatantly, and then they deliver to restaurants across the road. Bus 93, 200, 293, etc., have to make a detour around them, right? Nothing has been done. All our buses have CCTVs on them. Can we not trove through that data, issue at least warning letters, if nothing else? Because if we allow this to continue, I've seen delivery drivers on sidewalks. They are weaving through pedestrians, not on scooters or anything, but on proper delivery bikes, with the L learner plates. This is now completely out of control, and I would urge TfL to take the lead on this and do something about it before it's too late and our streets start resembling those in many other parts of the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anurag. Omid, and then Deborah.
Well, thank you, Andy, for, again, a very impactful Commissioner's report. I return to this subject repeatedly about innovation. I think throughout the report there's some really great examples of innovation with actual real outcomes. So we've talked about the sort of safety standard as one, the EV charger is another, the weekend hopper fare. I particularly want to call out the technology being used to help inform and investigate the fare evaders that Anurag mentioned. The internet connectivity point, I think, is not just brilliant for people who are doom scrolling Instagram, but actually it's a foundational platform that really does help London in its long term. So I think it's important that we understand and recognise that, and want to commend TfL for that investment. I'm going to go back a little bit to the heat, if I may, and talk about some of the other angles of it. So we're in the middle of London Data Week this week, for those of you that don't know, and I guess that kind of unpacked a couple of questions for me. The first is, how are we monitoring real-time passenger conditions across all modes of transport? How do we understand what the kind of passenger experience is? And as a central line user, I won't get into anecdote, but it hasn't been great as a passenger. And then secondly, it got me thinking about the kind of route response to cooling and getting those conditions in the right place. How are we taking a whole system approach to this for TfL? That was my other kind of thought process. Looking at the different modes, I absolutely understand that. But actually, where is this all coming together, and how can we get assurance of the experiments we're trying to do to help and the long-term investments we need to resolve the problem? Thank you.
Thank you, Omid. Deborah, thanks for your patience.
Not at all, Chair. Thank you. And thank you, Andy, for your canter through what seems to be, again, an at-pace work since we last met. So I know, personally, North London forever. Whatever the weather, these streets are our own. And as a North Londoner, I was really impressed with the transport arrangements around North London for the celebrations that a certain football team had, which I don't support, but I appreciated the transport. I'm also recognising that there's a lot of there are a lot of football stadia, especially within North London, that are now seeing very large events. I think we've got BTS happening, or happened yesterday and the day before. And I think I just want to commend the fact that TfL take these in our stride. We don't see it, it doesn't feel very, I think the technical word is janky, for the transport that comes out in those areas. So I just have to, once again, congratulate our staff that are on the ground and that work alongside the rail networks to keep London moving. In terms of, and I said those three sentences for three things. So that one is around transport. Whatever the weather, I would like to specifically mention a journey that I had on the weekend. I was on the DLR. And I know that last month we spoke about the rebasing of capital investment, especially delaying some of the investment for the DLR trains. So I just want to mention and celebrate the staff on the DLR trains. It was, as usual, as has been the case, a very hot day. And I want to specifically mention a gentleman called Ian. There are two Ians apparently on TfL. He said, I'm the right Ian. So Ian was there in his shorts on a very, very hot day. And I always say the culture of an organisation is the way that people act when no one's watching. Ian was courteous. He was chipper in spite of the fact that it was hot. And when we got into conversation, he said that, and he stated he was very excited by the training that was coming on board for the new trains. He said he wasn't clear when the new trains were coming on, and he would find it helpful to know. And then he did say, and I think I've always written an email to Claire, he said, I've got to tell management that when the trains come in, if there is a long delay, the whole idea about retraining, so not to forget that the learning may go down with the distance from the trains coming in. But he had spoken about the fact that the staff would welcome, like at the bus stops, how long it is before these come in, even if there are changes. And I know I did ask Claire on this, so that's one area of comms and engagement. In fact, all of this is about comms and engagement. My second area is more of a question about how we communicate and engage with London. I'm on social media. I am one of those doom scrollers. But what I see on social media is a lot of Londoners talking about TfL, engaging with TfL. Most of it is positive, and even the parts that are critical are still done in the inimitable style of Londoners. So I'm wondering how we engage with Londoners who want to be those sorts of volunteers or voices for TfL. People like, I think, Laura Barraclough, who I think she must be on day 67 now, or saying she wants to be the voice of Northern Line on TfL. So there are those people who want to engage, and there are also our approaches where sometimes TfL seems to be on broadcast rather than on communication with Londoners, and we seem to be telling people about problems with the service or information, as opposed to just having that convo. So one is the comms and so 2 points basically about our comms and engagement, how we engage our staff and keep them abreast of what's happening, good, bad and the ugly, and making sure that that communication is consistent. And then the second question is about how we communicate or how we engage Londoners to help us with our communication and do things like answer the wishes of Londoners who would love to be engaged and be part of the voice of helping people move around this great capital.
Okay, thanks, Deborah. Laura, Carolyn, I'll bring you in the next round if that's okay. Andy, feel free to bring in colleagues as and when.
Will do. Thanks, Sadiq. Anurag, thank you for the comments around fair evasion. It wasn't because we put a shadow on your house, but it has been. Siwan Hayward, as you know, is leading a huge programme of work around reducing fare evasion. And one of the things we want to do here, we had a really interesting update at our security resilience meeting a few weeks ago around some of the statistics that we've not traditionally used, because if you just base it on a percentage, the percentage may reduce, but the value will increase, particularly if fares increase. And ridership increases. So that's a lot of work we're doing. Counsel on the DLR are doing a huge focus on fare evasion using their onboard staff, and Claire and the team are doing a lot of work with our colleagues in revenue control and protection on what more we can do on the tube specifically. So thank you for that. On Vision Zero rules and regulations, you're absolutely right. There are unfortunately a minority of people who don't think they have to comply with the rules and regulations of the road. Some don't know what the rules and regulations are. I already mentioned around the requirements around highway code. Enforcement is a key topic for us with the police. The boroughs are keen to see their enforcement powers expanded. There are regulatory and legislative challenges around that. And on the specifics of e-bikes, I mean, Claire and I met with the CEOs of all three e-bike operators probably about 12 months or so ago now. It's probably worth us having a further catch up with them. But we are enforcing where we're able to, because we can't enforce on borough pavements. That is down to the boroughs and the councils. But they are also investing a lot of money in removing bikes that are hazards, because they are an issue, not only because they look unsightly, but they cause real issues, as you highlighted, in terms of people having to step off the pavement, people with disabilities who may not see them or can't step off the pavement. So we have to really continue to focus on that collectively with the boroughs. And I know it's a discussion that regularly comes up through London Council's Transport Environment Committee. So we can probably take you through a bit more detail offline around what we're doing, the enforcement on that. And we've seen a significant increase in the bikes that we've been removing from our roads and pavements and station areas. So to assure you, but equally there is also the way to report it as well. So perhaps there's more we can need to do to highlight how people can report where there are bikes obstructing the highway. Delivery drivers, again, I'll get Lilli to touch on this. We've done a huge amount through the gig economy, through our charter on safety and Vision Zero with all the key operators. So Lilli, I don't know if you just want to touch on that.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, you go straight to some of the real challenges that are leading to some of the problems that we're facing, so the counter trends. The issue with, delivery riders are obviously working under pressure. They're obviously time constrained. So for them, they're probably making rational choices. So we just have to understand that. There is a lot of work that we're doing with the meal and grocery delivery company to encourage the right kind of safe road behaviours. And actually, a lot of the companies involved are really sympathetic to that and keen to work with us on it. And one of the things, as an example, that they're doing, which isn't directly about the behaviour, I'll come to that, but for example, they're looking at platforms and mechanisms for providing safer bikes through rental schemes to their riders, which might help reduce some of the fire risks, for example, with using inappropriate and unsafe bikes. In terms of the actual enforcement of road user behaviour, though, one thing I would call out, and it was really interesting at the Vision Zero Summit, we had the first outputs from the enforcement work of the new road danger reduction team, which has been put in place through the great work of Shoaf and Clarke, where I think it's around 400 officers that we're paying for. They have a whole new method of deployment and tackling road danger, and the levels of enforcement have significantly increased. Now, some of that's based on speeding, and particularly on cars, but they will also look at jumping red lights, particularly for those kind of users. So what I think we'll see is that team gets confidence and fans out, is it's much more agile and be much more visible around London. So actually having that sharp edge to enforcement, which is so important. And I think the only other element, the point about the sea of line bikes that you highlight, that is a real issue, and it is obviously why we've been pushing government for much stronger legislation to be able to regulate these bikes and be able to support the boroughs who might be really struggling in locations like you're talking about, because it's just not acceptable in terms of the impact on the road network.
And in terms of CCTV on buses, unless Claire, you've got no specific, I don't know what our capability is in terms of enforcing vehicles that are parked illegally, in effect, in bus stops, but we'll take that away unless you've got something specific on that.
No, what I was going to say was that, so we engage the bus operators to get the drivers to ring straight into control so that they can then identify these locations to enforce, but also we've got more transport and security enforcement officers going out to hotspot locations where we're seeing bus stops being blocked, because it's an issue across London. So using CCTV is one thing, but the word of mouth of the driver, and we are getting some locations which we know are more problematic. So even though it might not be on our road, it's not, we need to protect the bus performance as well. So, and that photo you've got, if you can send it through to me, then we'll make sure that we, as an example, because whenever I walk around the streets, I'm taking photos all the time because this is important. We've got a lead in my team called Helen Sharp, who engages with the e-bike operators and dockless bikes, and she's feeding all of this in and saying this is not acceptable, you need to do better. So that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Omid, thanks for your comments around innovation and 4G, 5G rollout. It is key for a whole raft of reasons that will deliver benefits on safety and security, helping us reduce violence against women and girls, reduce the perception that the network is unsafe, real-time customer messaging around disruption, etc. The list goes on. Around the heat plan, I think the first thing I need to say is, understandably, there's a lot of focus on heat at the moment. Actually, we're focusing on the weather all year round. Within probably the next month or so, we'll be starting to work on our winter preparedness. And people will be thinking, why are you worrying about that when it's 30 degrees outside? Well, that's because we have to prepare well in advance. The actions we are taking this week and last week are not things that were created this week and last week. They were created and developed, months ago. In terms of our real-time monitoring, there is a limit to what we have and can do on train fleets. We'll take that away, see if there's more we can do to understand it. Those trains don't have technology in their cabins, the passenger cabins. The more modern ones do, because they have air conditioning. So that is something that we need to look at. Our focus is at making sure, particularly on those older fleets like the Central, Jubilee, the Northern, is where we have recirculating systems, is to make sure that they are working effectively. Now, recirculating is not air conditioning or air cooling, but at least it creates a breeze and a flow. And we have to be realistic that, converting existing fleets to air conditioning or air cooling is frankly not something that is viable or possible. That's why we will continue to make the case for funding from central government as per our capital funding settlement for the money to renew and replace rolling stock. It's also worth remembering actually the number of fleets is reducing. Pick line trains will have air conditioning, the DLR trains have air conditioning. We can place the order for the Bakerloo fleet, etc. So, but unfortunately, some of those older fleets are going to continue. We need to see if there is a way we can reduce and mitigate the impact of that, because the last thing we want is people choosing not to travel because their journey experience is not a good one. And we can, by all means, either a panel or committee, give a further update on what our winter resilience operational plans are, if that would be helpful. Deborah, thank you for... I'm not a London Football Club supporter at all, but spend an awful lot of time with the rest of ExCo and particularly Claire's team, making sure we deliver plans. The scale of what our operational teams do, actually every day of the week, there is a significant event happening in London. You know, the mayor and his team are incredibly successful in getting events to come to London. We have some of the best facilities in the world, not just in the UK. We are hosting and getting people to and from significant events every day of the week, pretty much. And I was chatting to Howard Collins, who I referenced earlier. Howard runs New South Wales. He is on the radio when there's a major sporting event in Sydney. He's on the radio a couple of times a week. If we did that, Claire and I would never be off the radio, and an awful lot of Londoners would be very bored of the sound of our voice regularly because our teams deal with it. During the football season, we will have 6 to 8 major football matches going on across the city. That's before you get into concerts, theatre, arts and culture, whatever it may be. So our teams just do an amazing job. And then we have the exceptional events that we host incredibly well. London Marathon, New Year's Eve fireworks, BST, etc. Pride. Pride is the second busiest day of the year in London. We had over 1 million people come in a very concentrated space to observe and support people in the Pride March. On top of that, the teams are dealing with multiple sporting events, Harry Styles concert at Wembley, Metallica at the London Stadium, the list goes on. They just get on with it. They're robust plans, deal with it really well. But I have to say we do also need the support of the travelling public to be compliant to those rules and regulations. One of the challenges we had during the Arsenal football parade was people setting off flares. Now, that's fine outside. In an underground station, it's a really bad thing that can lead to a safety issue that will lead to the fire evacuation system going off, which will lead to the station being evacuated and will result in trains non-stopping, which then means the ability to move people is far more challenging. So I would really ask the public to please comply with the safety regulations and the instructions of our colleagues and be cooperative in that for their own safety and to ensure we can deliver as reliable a service going forward. But the scale and size of what we do every day is phenomenal. It's unlike, I would go to say, any other city in the world, and I'm incredibly proud, and we're incredibly proud of what our teams do. So thank you for that. In terms of wider engagement and communication, huge amount of work goes on there, led through Emma Strain from the social media side and Alex's team, Matt Brown on the wider comms, and we can, by all means, give you an update offline on how we do that. Huge amount around staff engagement. Clearly, even if we don't have firm updates, we try and ensure that people are kept up to speed. Curtis Amy doing an awful lot of work around the DLR to keep their colleagues up to date. And of course, when we have a firm date for bringing the DLR trains back into service, part of that is around making sure we have a really robust operational readiness, staff refamiliarisation training plan, and that's all part of the work that Claire's team are leading with the DLR. Thank you.
Okay, Carolyn, Laura and Mari in that order, if that's okay. Thank you so much for your patience. Carolyn, over to you in the cheap seats.
Thank you, Chair. Not at all. First of all, can I just add my congratulations to Lilli on her prestigious appointment, and welcome to Laura. I hope to meet you in person soon. The problem, Commissioner, is you write such a comprehensive report and there's so many interesting things going on that the board can't resist asking all these questions. But I'm really pleased to see that there's research into oversized vehicles. And are you able to say what type of policy interventions or recommendations to government might be considered with respect to oversized vehicles? It may be a bit too early, but there's an opportunity for London to lead the world in this area. And my second point is just a comment on the page 66 on the Places for London. There's a lot of information about different projects at various stages of development, and a graphic that just showed how many houses are being currently planned, how many are in the system for planning, how many are in construction, and how many are completed. Just a simple graphic would show us the amazing work that we're doing on delivering homes for Londoners. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carolyn. Laura, over to you.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the EXCO and to the other members of the board for such a warm welcome. And I'm delighted that in my first meeting we have the Commissioner's report, because it reminds us all why having an integrated transport network is the backbone of having a city that thrives, and all the work that takes place across so many different aspects of TfL to make sure that this is a world-class city, which it most certainly is. Probably could have saved the comment for the next paper, but really pleased to be on the chairing the Safety and Security panel. And I've noted in the paper that we're on target, but probably not going fast enough. Really keen to work with our colleagues, especially around innovation, and to see what we can do to make sure we get to meet those targets as we have all committed to. But my specific question is about the bus shelter CCTV trial, which I think is really interesting and really exciting. From previous work, I know that the last mile is a really important bit of every journey, and how people feel in the beginning and the end of that journey is hugely important, especially women and girls who often feel most vulnerable in those stations. So it says the early findings are positive. I just wondered when we'll have more definitive findings, and whether then we'll be able to sort of come at that from a safety by design perspective to think about wider infrastructure. Thank you, Chair.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mari. Thank you so much for bearing with me. Over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Andy, for a really comprehensive report. One quick comment and one question, I think. I was really pleased, a relatively small issue, but to see the provision of free Santander bikes for black cab drivers doing the knowledge. My dad did the knowledge in the late 1940s on a cranky old bike that he always said he was worried he wouldn't make it through the day on. And I just thought that actually would have made him smile, which is always a good thing. So thank you for that. Very pleased to see the walking and wheeling action plan and the livable neighbourhoods strategy. Some amazing work there and some really good initiatives. But I'm just wondering about us always being ahead of the game, and just wondering whether we are already in discussions with the NHS about their newly announced plan for walking a marathon a month, which doesn't come in for a year, but I'm just hoping that we are already in discussions with them about how we can link up with that, because it's going to provide tangible rewards for people for increasing the walking. It's just a good opportunity. Thank you very much.
Okay, Andy, again, feel free to bring your colleagues as and when.
Thanks, Sadiq. Carolyn, I'll ask Alex to come back on oversized vehicles. We think there is an opportunity there, but there's a lot more data and analysis still to be done. But Alex?
Yeah, and the context for this is links to the Vision Zero Action Plan, where whilst we are seeing a reduction, I think Keith has referred to it, it's kind of plateauing really, and we need to look at further interventions to make our roads safer and deliver those safety outcomes. So we are doing some research on that. There will be a briefing on that very soon to members of the board, and we can let you know where we are on that. There's still a lot of data to gather and a lot of work to do to work out how you would intervene on that. A lot of the debate is about SUVs. SUVs is a marketing term, and it's not a kind of framework for any proper assessment about what you do in that space, really. On the places issue, I completely agree with you. We could probably add in a kind of a simple kind of infographic about where we are. Just for your notice, we're at 1,740 completed homes. By the end of the financial year, we will be over 2,000. We will start around 1,000 new units this financial year. And there's a whole series of others in planning as well, really. So we can get you that core data and reflect it in this report, but there's a lot of good news there. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Laura, thanks for your comments. And on the bus shelters, I'll ask, I'm not sure, Claire, to update on where we are.
Thanks, Laura. Yes, I mean, we got some initial customer feedback from the trial that we were doing that said they felt more confident knowing, obviously, there was CCTV at these shelters, but working with the police to see what impact that's having on crime reduction is what we're working through. So November is the date that we're due to come back. It will come to SSP as an update, and we can talk through the findings and see how we can roll this out further. We've got new designs of bus shelters out there now, and some of them have got the CCTV, some of them haven't, but we're trying to find the best environment for customers in overall, and if we can fit CCTV to all of them, then obviously that's definitely the way forward.
Thanks, Claire. Mari, thank you for your comments. Lilli, I actually hadn't heard about the new NHS Marathon a Month. I should probably pay more attention, probably do it myself, but Lilli.
Yeah, well, it was actually my Instagram that told me about it, so there we go. I'm obviously in the target market for it. So, thanks for the comments about the walking and wheeling action plan, which is a great plan, actually, for just trying to really continue to uplift those activity levels across London. So we do usually have maintained really good contacts. I personally wasn't aware of that initiative before it launched, but I'll work with Will Norman to make sure that we're integrating it and doing our best to also promote it, because, as you say, as I understand it, it's an incentivised scheme, which is great and something that Emma's team could work with in terms of communicating to our customers as well. As walking to the public transport is the best way to get your steps in every day.
It's worth saying as well, I was lucky enough to meet the CEO of the British Heart Foundation a few weeks ago, and that's created a new connection now. So her team are now connected with Lilli's team to see what more we can do to support, obviously, some of their initiatives around reducing the risk of people with heart attacks and heart conditions, as well as improving training and knowledge for our own colleagues in the event that they have to assist someone. It's just another example of where we're trying to work with third parties to improve health.
Well, thanks, Andy. Thanks for the questions and comments. I've got a few observations to make, which I want to share with colleagues. Look, those of us who were here during the pandemic know how important our frontline workers were and took risks with their own personal safety to make sure our city kept on running, to allow nurses, doctors, shopkeepers and others to get to places of work which we needed. I think this heatwave has reminded us that they're an invaluable asset and we need to look after them. Those that are directly employed by us and those that are indirectly employed by private companies, but, employed by private companies and therefore indirectly employed by us, and we need to take care of them. It's really important that if colleagues have any ideas, and I think this team are working at, using every tool in the toolkit to keep our people safe, please let us know. So, of course, we want our users to feel comfortable. Of course, we want the kit to work, but also we need to make sure our workers are safe and healthy and not working in oppressive conditions. So Jim, just please pass the word on that there's an open door, open email, open phone policy in terms of reaching out about any ideas. If you think City A is doing things in an innovative way, let's pinch the idea and do it in London as well. And I can assure you that Claire means what she says about new tech, whether it's retrofitting, whether it's thinking outside the box to help transport workers, because it's really important that we do that. Second thing to say is, Deborah, thanks for your comments. But actually, Andy, I do want to just ask you and your team to just think about what more innovation we can have, not just to do comms and engagement with staff, but, Lilli discovered the great work of the NHS through Instagram. We've got to be at least better than the NHS when it comes to Instagram, right? And so let's go away and think about what the medium we can be using to let people know. And your challenge, Deborah, about it being interactive rather than broadcasting is a fair one. Obviously, horses for courses. We don't want, 10 million people communicating with TfL every hour, because obviously they've got work to do as well. So let's think about how we can be nimble and dexterous as well. And can I just say, Omid, as ever, you've provoked a thought with me, and I think, Andy, again, I appreciate the purposes of the CCTV is for, reasons A, B, and C, but I think with the advances in AI, why can't we be using some of that CCTV being captured by our buses to enforce what Anurag is talking about, which I'll come to in a second? And so, can you work with the team about how we can be thinking outside the box? And by the way, Andy and the team did some great work to reduce suicides on platforms using AI. When they've got time, they'll share that with you. Lilli can talk to you about that and stuff. But again, Andy, I think the point that Anurag and Omid are making, I'll come to Anurag's point shortly, is we've got this CCTV on the buses. People are breaking the rules outside the buses. It's affecting our service, but actually we can be in a clever way, without costing too much money, use AI to use the information we have. And Dan, can I just have an ask, which is the secondary legislation required through SI is really important, because yes, the legislation has been passed in terms of the e-scooters, the bikes and so forth, but until we get that, our hands are tied a bit. So if you could go back to DFT, I hear there's a new sheriff in town in a couple of weeks. He used to be a mayor, and so he understands the importance of devolution, and so it would be really good if we were ahead of the queue when it came to it. And I've said the same to him, by the way, Jim, in terms of the priorities for the new Prime Minister. But this is really important to get going quickly. The final point is Anurag's point. Anurag, can I just say, the issue you raise is a profound one, and it's troubled me for some time, which is a sense of unfairness, because some people play by the rules of the game and some don't. And I think actually it's a really serious issue for our society. It could be to do with cyclists not following the highway code, a perception that they never follow the rules. We do. A perception that I pay my fare but others don't. A perception that e-scooters ride on pavements, all of them, and cause us dangers, dump their bikes on the pavements when I make sure my bike's put away, jump the queue. And so I think the issue is not just TfL's issue. I think it's an issue of society, which I think we've got to grapple. Those in my profession. But TfL can do things, clever things, to try and make progress. So again, let's take away. Alex has some great work around nudge work and stuff. Let's just take this away. Working with partners, could be the NHS, it could be the government, it could be other parts of civic society. You know, somebody mentioned the Green Cross Code. I'm also that vintage, by the way, Keith. Look, listen, and something else. That's right. And by the way, and so it's just worth thinking about what we can do. I think the great thing about TfL is under this leadership and the last two commissioners, it's not just about raising revenues. It's about creating a better city, and so it's worth thinking about. And the final point is, you know, as colleagues were speaking about the example of. By the way, I'd not heard about the marathon a month, which scared me first, but it's walking a marathon rather than running a marathon, right? But actually, the reward, the incentivization, you know, the TfL are working on a reward system as well. Question: can we join this up in terms of rewarding Londoners if they're doing a few more steps in terms of the credit it gives you? And so forth. I mean, I'm not making policy on the hoof, but I'm saying it's just worth us thinking about, because these great ideas coming from the board. And the great thing about this ExCo is they're not going to rebut, they're going to listen, respond, and test. So that has been a really rich conversation, Andy, and thanks for stimulating that. As Carolyn said, the joy of a good report and a good oral report, it stimulates thoughts, and you've got experts to read it. So we're asking the board to note Andy's report. Is that agreed? Thank you very much, Andy. The next item is the finance report. Patrick, over to you.
Good morning. In March, when we discussed our budget for the year, which targets a £5 million operating surplus to fund investment, we discussed the economic uncertainty that had been created by the escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, which was on top of the risks that we're already aware of when we had prepared that budget. And we talked about the importance of monitoring and responding to the situation as it develops. 3 months on, the picture remains uncertain. The economic data is mixed and our passenger data is mixed, but there are some signs of an underlying pressure that is starting to emerge. In terms of economic data, economic growth remains subdued, and although we've seen quarterly growth in UK GDP, monthly GDP fell in April by 0.1%. London payroll employment has continued to be weaker than anticipated, and although May's inflation figures remain stable, which is good news, our budget was based on inflation falling. Taken together, and just in that broader uncertainty that's impacting customer confidence, employer confidence, I believe those factors are starting to impact our customers, therefore impacting our demand and therefore impacting our revenue. Looking forwards, whilst oil prices fell sharply in June, the delayed impact of the UK energy price cap is likely to increase inflation in July as domestic energy prices increased by 13% on the 1st of July. And the position in the Strait of Hormuz remains uncertain, and events this week have pushed prices back up over the past few days. But it does look possible that the impact of inflation could be less significant and less persistent than certainly I was fearing a few months ago. In terms of our journey data, the start of the year, and this report covers the first two periods, have been impacted by both industrial action and extreme weather. But again, there are some underlying signs of a potential pressure. In the year to date, we have an operating surplus of 21 million, which is 21 million lower than budget, and that is due to lower passenger income and net road user charging revenue. On passenger journey numbers, overall journeys are 4 million below budget, but 47 million higher than last year. Looking into the key modes, bus demand grew over the first two periods by 0.7%, which is encouraging, but that is composed by growth in period one, when we had industrial action on the tube, and a decline in period two. So I think it's still fair to say there's more work to do to stabilise bus demand, which is the target for the budget this year. And tube demand was down 0.2% on last year and 1.1% on budget, but that was mainly as a result of that industrial action in the first period of the year. Although looking over the medium term, slightly longer horizon, commuting passenger growth has softened since September last year, which we think is linked to the declining payroll employment data that the report shows. Elizabeth Line continues to grow. Demand is up 1.7% on last year, although is trending slightly lower than the growth we have in the full year budget of 3.6%. Outside of passenger and fares income, which is our most important revenue source, our other operating income is 3 million above budget, which is primarily driven by higher advertising income, which continues to perform well, but that is offset by lower than budgeted roads and tunnel income. And since ending the 100% cleaner vehicle discount scheme for the congestion charge late last year, we've seen fewer previously exempt vehicles entering the congestion charge zone. That's partly due to a greater the initial behavioural impact of that change, which is in line with the policy goals of that change, but also partly due to a slower uptake nationally of zero-emission vehicles. But as a relatively new scheme, that's something we're continuing to monitor closely, but it does look like that will create a full-year impact on our budget in terms of revenue this year. Although overall revenue is within 1% of budget, so we are dealing with small margins. Core operating costs are £19 million above budget. That is driven by some one-off cost pressures in period one, some timing issues that I believe will wash out. The underlying issue that we're focused on is a higher cost of bad debt for our road user charging schemes. And as we've just been discussing, there is a moral imperative, a policy imperative and a financial imperative to ensure our customers do the right thing and pay us money they owe. And across all our road use and charging schemes, if 99.8% of drivers are either compliant, exempt, pay the charge or pay their PCN promptly when they get it. We're dealing with a 0.2% of drivers that are not doing that. And that's the area that we're really focused on to make sure it's really easy to do the right thing via autopay, and then we're tackling the drivers that aren't doing the right thing. And that is something we'll share with the briefing note with the Finance Committee, and I'm sure we'll discuss in more detail through the year. More broadly, for this year, we're targeting £591 million of cost and revenue improvements. And given the environment we're in, it's even more important we deliver that full programme and look to exceed it, given the headwinds that we're facing. So we've now established the governance to deliver that new programme that we mobilised this year. Our quarterly reporting cycle is just going through the first cycle now. We're coming to the end of the first quarter, and we'll be reporting that to the Finance Committee and providing a summary to the board each quarter as we go through. Turning to capital, we are budgeting to deliver 1.9 billion of investment this year in line with our business plan, including 850 million of critical renewal and major asset replacement. At period two, that was £15 million below budget, driven by phasing of spend early in the year. But I remain confident, and our track record of the past 2 years of delivering those programmes gives us confidence that we will deliver the full programmes over the course of the full year. On new capital enhancement and investment, we have invested 163 million, which is pretty much in line with budget. That does include some acceleration of spend on Piccadilly line upgrades, and we are seeing some small cost pressures in that programme and on the four lines modernisation programme. At the recent Programmes and Investment Committee, we had a very detailed discussion on those two programmes, on the range of actions we're taking to successfully deliver them and control those cost pressures. Whilst investing, we continue to maintain liquidity and borrowing with our prudent and sustainable levels. Cash balances were at 1.4 billion at the end of period 2, up from the closing balance at the end of last year, but slightly below our target of 60 days minimum cash. But we have returned to that at the end of the first quarter at period 1. And as I described last time, there were some timing differences over the year-end period. And given the higher cost of borrowing, we were not borrowing just to smooth out those shorter-term timing differences to reduce our financing costs. Our financial resilience continues to be externally validated, and in May, Standards & Poor's affirmed the long-term rating for TfL at AA- with a stable outlook. So whilst the external environment remains uncertain and there are some signs of some pressures emerging, our work to rebuild our financial resilience following the pandemic has put us in a stronger position to navigate this environment that we're now in. That's why we rebuilt our cash reserves. That's why we rebuilt our accounting reserves. That's why we include contingency in the budget, because those measures allow us some time to monitor this position carefully and build a clear position before determining whether we need to take any further correcting action over and above what's in our budget. I think when we next meet, the position will be clearer, and at that point we can discuss when any further actions are required. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Padre, thank you. Thank you so for the written paper and also for the oral update and stuff. Before I get to questions or comments besides Peter to Patrick. Okay, over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Patrick. Again, comprehensive report as always, and I think good to hear your narrative about the macroeconomic and the externalities, which are clearly a pressure on our finances. It's really interesting, isn't it, to see the Elizabeth line continuing to outperform, and I could be very simplistic and say, well, of course it will, because it's a brand new, shiny railway serving markets that weren't particularly well served before in some places. But have we got a much deeper analysis on Elizabeth Line's fortunes that we could then say, well, we know this, 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 and this, and we can start to replicate that? And I'm thinking particularly when we get to implementing Piccadilly line upgrade, implementing new Bakerloo activity. Can we capture some of those learnings from the Elizabeth line deeper than it's just a brand new, shiny, high-performing railway? Thanks.
Elizabeth line is something we've monitored carefully as part of understanding the benefits of the Crossrail programme. Some of it is delivered by the fact it's a fantastic new service and continues to attract passengers. Some of it is due to the growth that the Elizabeth line has stimulated, the new housing that it's unlocked, the development that it's bringing through that's still coming through and driving that demand. And it's a fantastic case study of infrastructure unlocking demand, supporting growth, supporting sustainable good growth. And all the year on, 2 years on, 3 years on reports really highlight that growth story. I think that's what's still coming through, but is starting to taper off. And we had anticipated that it would kind of go back to it broadly in line with the underground in terms of an equilibrium of growth. And we think it's starting to get down to that level. But 4 years on, still driving faster than other modes is fantastic.
So one thing I'd add to that is you'll know that there were 10 more trains coming, 5 next May, and the 5 after that as well, May 28. And we're doing quite a lot of analysis, which should be shared with you fairly soon, if it's not been done already, on the service patterns we're proposing for that. And that service pattern is really about how we drive more growth, actually. So if you think about, a good example is Heathrow, T5, 2 trains an hour on the Elizabeth line. We will go to 4. And there's obviously a market there, and that links into expansion to debates as well, really. So I've cleared the note. I'm not sure if it's actually been sent yet, but there's a note coming to you on the logic for where we put those extra trains to drive growth. Thank you.
If I may just say, it's worth saying that at our periodic review, we go into a lot of detail now on each mode. And on the Elizabeth line, we've asked for some specific work to be done because equally, Heathrow passengers were growing. Actually, Heathrow passengers have stopped growing because of the direct impact of the conflict in the Middle East. So that could well be having an effect as well. So again, it's an example of the macroeconomic effect actually having a direct consequence on less travellers coming into Heathrow, means less travellers on the Elizabeth line. But that's the level of detail that we'll be going into, assuming that is the case.
So, Peter, that further work you'll get the answers to, because I think it's a really important point in terms of a train service that runs from Reading to Shenfield, not just in London. What impact does that have in terms of how successful we've been extracting punters from other services that aren't TfL, the fact that it's air-conditioned, so forth. But the great thing about the Elizabeth line, aside from the obvious things, is the users aren't just those who commute to work or tourists or travellers, and that's what's fascinating about the Elizabeth line. And actually, one of the other lines we should have begun by now is Crossrail 2. And this reopens that conversation, particularly with the evidence quite clearly that infrastructure can lead to huge benefits across the country, not just in London. So good point, and Alex will come back to you in terms, and the whole board, in terms of the detailed work. Just to reassure you, Andy's point is really important. Patrick and his team, they go through every single mode. So buses is a regular conversation we have here, and Patrick alluded to that. The tube lines, the DLR, tram, so forth. So just we need that sort of micro stuff for obvious reasons. Patrick, thank you very much for your report. We're asking the boards to note the finance report. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. The next is the Safety, Health and Environment Annual Report. Lilli, this is for you.
Thank you very much. So I'm really pleased to present to you the annual Safety, Health and Environment Report. And although I'm presenting it, it very much reflects the work of Claire's team in terms of security, Fiona's team in terms of the occupational health team as well, because safety and sustainability are absolutely integral pillars to everything we do at TfL, and I think that is illustrated by this report. It's obviously based on the Mayor's transport strategy, which enables us to keep a really strong strategic focus on safety and sustainability, and that's also reflected in our corporate strategy. As we're working towards both our Vision Zero ambition for London, where no one is killed or seriously injured on the network, and our goal for net zero operations, decarbonising our transport operations and network, and readying ourselves for that changing climate that we've been talking about. So this report in particular focuses on our performance against longer-term trends and our progress in achieving these strategic objectives for safety and sustainability. And that's obviously in contrast to perhaps the shorter-term performance updates that we bring both to the Safety and Security Panel and the Customer Sustainability and Operations Panel. I think, I hope you'll agree that overall the report indicates that there's been really good progress in a number of areas, and I'll come on to those. We do acknowledge, though, in both safety and sustainability, there is further to go, and further action is required. And your comments earlier today, I think, were really helpful in illustrating where some of those areas are. But it is, as an annual report, an opportunity to celebrate progress on some of our often very innovative interventions that we bring to London every day. So just to turn to a few of those, and starting with safety. And I will start with the focus on Vision Zero. The Mayor's launch of the Vision Zero Action Plan 2 in March was hugely important. And it was important because it represented the joint commitment, not just it's not just our commitment, but also alongside us that day was the London Fire Brigade, the Metropolitan Police. We are obviously representing and strongly backed by the London boroughs as well in terms of achieving this global ambition for London. And the plan is very clear in terms of its 43 evidence-based actions that it sets out. We have a very clear roadmap ahead for us now on this agenda, and we will drive forward on it. I also wanted to spotlight the significant milestone in terms of London's buses. Last year, more than 2,900 buses met that bus safety standard requirement. Buses are the safest way to travel on our roads in London, And the continued rollout of the bus safety standard is now proven to be delivering real safety benefits. We skipped over, I think, that figure that we know that there is a 41% reduced risk and reduced incident of serious incidents on those buses compared to comparable routes. That's a massive achievement from a technology change on those buses, and I think that that's a really important achievement to note in this year. And then moving on to customer safety, I was really proud that we achieved our customer safety scorecard last year, turning around a performance that had been particularly worrying. And we saw reductions in both serious and fatal injuries. And it was really heartening that we were able to move forward with interventions and innovations around platform train interface risk, where we know for example, for our rail customers, some of the most serious incidents occur. So we are now trialling new innovative AI technology on cameras on a number of our stations, as well as looking at how to reduce risk on stairs and escalators. And finally, at the heart of our keeping our network safe, and we've talked about this, is our colleagues. It was very reassuring that in the 25-26 year, there were no fatalities affecting any of our colleagues. And although our ambitious annual target for serious injuries was not met, the longer-term trend is stable and within normal statistical variation. So the emphasis really is on doubling down and driving down those serious injuries as we move into the year ahead. Just turning to other areas of the report, obviously it also looks at the delivery activities across security, well-being and sustainability. And starting with security, we recognise it is and will remain a most important challenge for us, but the overall risk of crime on the network remains very low relative to the scale of journeys made. And we take an absolutely zero-tolerance approach to crime, antisocial behaviour, especially work-related violence to our colleagues and any threat to our customers on the network. And you will have heard that we've made some improvements and have seen a sustained downward trend in fare evasion due to the enforced work through enforcement activity from Shoaf's team. And in July 2025, we also established our Vulnerable Customers Programme, which is specifically aimed at enhancing our response to protect our most vulnerable customers, which is really important. Just turning to health, we know that when our colleagues are healthy and supported, they enjoy work and it benefits the whole organisation. So in April 2025, we published our wellbeing plan, and this brings a real focus across the organisation to improving wellbeing and is supported by evidence-based interventions. And we've already talked about the TRIM, or the Trauma Risk Management Programme. We were also part of the London-wide Love Your Heart campaign, aiming to help spot early signs of coronary heart disease. And finally, I'll just end by spotlighting some of the sustainability performance achievements. I think last year, if I think about it, I feel like we made real progress in landing some of the things that we'd probably talked about for quite a long time. And the end result of that is that we saw real momentum in terms of reducing carbon emissions, with a 17% reduction in operational carbon emissions. A lot of that was driven by the huge progress from Claire's team in delivering on the zero-emission bus fleet, which reached 2,900 vehicles in the financial year and is now over 3,000. That contributed to a nearly 10% reduction in TfL emissions from buses alone through that work. But there was also other great stuff going on. We decarbonised our first depot at Therapia Lane in Croydon. And there's work ongoing to decarbonise other parts of our operational estate. And finally, in terms of enhancing the green infrastructure and the biodiversity of London, we have continued to expand sustainable drainage through soft landscaping and those kind of installations, with over 9,000 square metres of catchment introduced across last year, and doubling the area of wildflower verges on our strategic road network. So lots to be proud of, much more to do, and happy to take any questions.
Okay, thanks for those additional comments. Lilli, any questions or comments from the team? Okay, I'll do Anurag first. Anurag, over to you. Sorry, Anurag, then Omid, yep.
Thank you, and fantastic report, Lilli. Lots to be proud of there. Question for you. Funding is constrained, right? And that's a fact of life. and let's say magically you had £50 million to spend, where would you, in all of these priorities, where would you spend it? And really what I'm trying to understand is, how do we prioritize between all of these different initiatives? It's such a difficult thing to do in a funding environment.
Thanks. Lee, can I take three questions? Three. Okay. Thanks, Anurag. Omid.
We should have synced up beforehand. So there was a velocity question that I had. But first of all, Lilli, let me just say a massive thank you to you, the wider TfL team, the people who put this report together and have done all the work. This is an incredible set of achievements that sit in here. So a real credit to you and your team. I had the velocity question, where would we prioritise? The other thing I was reflecting on was, through the dialogue today, it got me thinking about, so I'm going to declare my age as well, I remember the Green Cross Code. So it just got me thinking about what are we doing and how are we helping our passengers and our users understand their duties? Because there's a lot in here about the work that TfL has done and partners are doing, but our passengers have a set of duties as well in order to make sure that they are contributing to our Vision Zero ambition. So I just wondered if you could talk a little bit more about that and what more we might be able to do there. Thank you.
And Mari.
Thank you very much, and Lilli and team, thank you as always for a really good report, but more importantly, all the work that sits behind it. There's one particular area which has come up regularly at CSOP, which is in relation to slips, trips and falls, which traditionally we think of as an issue for older and disabled people. But I think we increasingly understand their relevance for all of our passengers, particularly on the bus network, and the importance of tackling those for all kinds of reasons, but including giving people confidence to use the buses. Some great initiatives and great ways forward in the report. For example, tackling buggy-related falls, which I, to be honest, never really thought of, because when I was pushing a buggy, they didn't fit on the buses. But also improvements to lighting and to signage, for example, telling people whether there is seat availability upstairs. But there's so many things going on that I'm wondering how we are pulling them together in terms of our learning in relation to what works. All really good initiatives, but what does it tell us as a bigger picture in terms of what we're actually managing to do to tackle that issue? Thank you.
There's only one more, Lilli, which is who's Carolyn online. Can we do that as well? Carolyn, over to you.
Thank you, and likewise, this is an excellent report and shows a huge amount of extremely good work going on. I'm interested in the natural capital accounting and understanding the value of our green space and hoping that we'll be moving towards having a target perhaps to continue to increase the value of our green assets. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. And also the report mentions carbon literacy training that's been rolled out to lots of TfL colleagues, and I wonder whether this could be offered to the board as well. Thank you.
Okay, Lilli, over to you. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you. And first of all, thank you. Really genuinely, I will convey all of those thanks and comments to my team and wider teams across TfL. And I know that there's a lot of people working on this, and that will be really, really welcome. And one of my team members is in the audience, in fact, so she will be listening and conveying for me. I love your question, Anurag. I'm going to spend the 50 million twice. So I'm going to spend it on safety, and then I'll give you a little indication in terms of sustainability. I think we do clearly, under Patrick's good guidance, we have absolute focus on prioritisation and trying to demonstrate what is the best bang for buck. We know, for example, in terms of sustainability, if we had additional investment, where I would probably spend it right now is on further low energy lighting, because we know it has a very good payback and a direct impact on carbon emissions. We were just doing the analysis on stations, the impacts of the LED implementation that we've been doing has delivered a 35% reduction in energy consumption, a 35% reduction in costs, and an additional near £1 million in reduced maintenance costs, and that's just in a collection of stations. So if you are very limited and you're wanting to progress towards net zero, then you really focus on those ones. And we are always, that kind of information is always driving our decision making. But I would also say that if we think about the extreme weather and our need to adapt to a changing climate, which it is changed, we're living in it, then it's actually about embedding that in the systems and the decision-making we make every day. So when we spend £1, we get twice the benefits, and that is very much informing the asset work and the asset thinking that Isabel in Stuart's team is doing. So it's very much embedded in terms of how we're deciding how to do things. And for example, the sustainable drainage is not necessarily an additional cost on projects, it's how we're designing the projects. You either put tarmac back or you don't put tarmac back. So there are some real choices there, and it's about doing things differently, and it isn't always about additional costs. Similarly, in terms of safety, some of this is about doing things differently, but there is, again, a clear prioritisation. And I would just sort of say, we know that reducing speed limits as a system change is probably the most effective way of taking risk out of the system. You're simply, through physics, taking the speed of those vehicles out. So just be reassured that kind of prioritisation is absolutely the heart of what we're doing. Thank you, Omid, again, for your thanks. I really liked your question in terms of how we bring Londoners with us to help us on this journey and sort of understanding their duties in terms of whether they're sort of towards sustainability or safety. Certainly in terms of safety, actually, some brilliant work which Emma and Alex's team has done is we have explicitly, first of all, we did customer research, and then we have explicitly changed the tone of some of our customer messaging to make it clear that it is more of a contract. We will provide a safe network, but we need you to behave responsibly when you're on the network. And the post-implementation feedback on that is actually very understanding and accepting. So as long as you get the tone right, people really are happy to understand that. We haven't perhaps used that so much on the environmental theme. It's been more trying to celebrate what we've done. I think our customers are still quite unused to even thinking about us having any angle on this, so we're probably earlier in that journey. In terms of, Mary, in terms of slips, trips and falls, I mean, obviously it's a huge part of what we need to focus on. I can't actually remember exactly what the question was on that one.
We're doing lots of different initiatives. How are we
how we bring them together. Yeah, no, so that actually, so I don't know if you might want to add any of the work that you're doing, Claire, but one of the things that we're really coordinating around, again in that prioritisation way, is there is a platform train interface program, which is looking at everything about reducing risks around there. And it's not just one project, there's many, many projects. There's also a stairs and escalators program with multiple different initiatives, and all of those are being evaluated together. So basically I will be overseeing a sort of full business case analysis of all of those initiatives coming back to me to help sort of say, we know what the particular problems are at the platform interface or on stairs and escalators. How have these different projects worked to actually reduce risk for our customers? So that's all work and train, and it's something we're definitely happy to do briefings on. It will be something, obviously, for the SSP to really get under the skin on. But I don't know if you wanted to add, Claire.
Yeah, thank you. So on the bus safety issue, the Bus Safety Standard 1 was designed as a result of the trials that we did at that point to see what we could do to reduce harm on board buses. And Bus Safety Standard 2, these trials that are mentioned in the report, are how we're looking at what we could change in terms of the standard of buses in that regard. So we'll do the trials, we've got scientists and people evaluating the outcomes, and then that will feed into the evolution of Bus Safety Standard 2. So things like lighting, advising people what's available upstairs. We have people that go upstairs that really shouldn't, and then they get up when they should wait for the bus to stop because they're worried they're going to miss their stop, and we want to prevent all of that happening. So indicators to say whether there are seats available are a really good thing, but it needs to be really robust and work really well. So we're working on that. And once again, back at Millbrook last month, we were taking through all of these different initiatives, and we're using different manufacturers, different operators, different innovators to see what the right solution is, working with disability groups, customer groups to get feedback. So I'd be really happy to take you through that maybe at CSOP at a later date once we've got some feedback on it.
Thank you. It's incredibly exciting, actually, the bus safety. It's incredibly rigorous, the different analysis of that. And finally, Caroline, thank you. And thanks for highlighting the work around accounting for our natural capital. Just remembering, obviously, that we're one of London's largest landowners. So our responsibility to managing the green estate is very significant. So obviously part of that is just understanding what there is, and that is updating that natural capital accounting work. We will be looking at how we can measure the improvement to that, and essentially also how that can inform things like our operational estate planning, so that when we're making decisions about our operational estate, which includes the green estate, we're making the right decisions that are based on that information. We also have other parallel pieces of work, for example, around tree planting and increasing the tree canopy of London, and that is, again, one we're working with the GLA more widely to set targets for and to make sure that we're continuing to push forward on that. And finally, in terms of carbon literacy, Andrea, yes, please.
Yeah, we've provided this training to the board previously, which was probably the previous board, but we'll certainly pick that up and offer that to board members. And it was very, very well received when we last did it, so we're very happy to pick that up.
Okay, just a couple of observations from me. Firstly, just for those watching this, nobody gets a blank cheque in the organisation, and if they did, Patrick would have strong words to say, but Patrick will remind me nobody gets to spend it 3 times either, as well. But you know, can I say I'm really taken by Omid's point. Listen, I think there about duties. Clearly, because people are paying for a service, there are some conditions attached to that. So you've got to pay the fare and so forth, so forth. But there are some things that are just have always been done, and they're accepted. Stand on the right of an escalator, mind the gap, and so forth. But it is worth us thinking about how we can use the behavioural science in terms of stuff that doesn't need to be a condition of using TfL, stand on the right of the escalator, mind the gap and so forth, and some things that definitely are a condition, because I think Londoners should see themselves as not as consumers but as citizens, and a citizen has a two-way relationship. A consumer is a one-way relationship. You buy the DAS and that's it. And I think it's really important for us to just think about that as the world-leading integrated transport authority, how we can try and engender a sense of the London spirit via TfL, and so it could be, you know, so just worth taking that away. I think it's really exciting potentially. Okay, we're asked as a board to note the paper, and also Omid, Anurag, thanks for your comments about the team. You know, they do watch this sort of stuff, and the team will feedback the praiseworthy comments of the board members. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. The next item on the agenda is the Bakerloo line upgrade compulsory purchase order. Alex.
Thank you very much, Chair. Members will be aware that the Bakerloo line upgrade project is overseen by Programmes and Investment Committee, and it's a really important project to replace trains that are now 54 years old, the oldest daily operating trains in the UK, with 36 new trains. Now, to achieve that, you need to buy 2 strips of land at Stonebridge Park and Queen's Park to expand the depot facilities. And when you buy land through compulsory purchase, that is a decision for the board, not Programmes of Investment Committee. So that's why this report is here to you today. The one thing I would note, though, I can appreciate the kind of optics of this report do not look great. One public body CPOing another public body. And it would imply that we don't get on, and I can assure you we do get on, and this report is being submitted to you with the support of Network Rail. In fact, I've spoken to the Chief Executive and the Chief Finance Officer, and they are both supportive of this approach. And the reason they're supportive of this approach is that the CPO endorsement from this board will trigger the negotiations with the leaseholder, and having this as an opportunity, as an approved statement of intent that we plan or we are prepared to go down the CPO route is something that they support and we feel is really important to progress this negotiation. My view is it's highly unlikely that we will end up going down the full CPO route, and we will negotiate the land we all need with those leaseholders through consent. But this is a signal of intent that we are prepared to go down that route, and it's also with the agreement of NR. It is not us falling out, it is us working together in a way to move this project on and deliver it in London. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. I see the chair of the Land and Property Committee, Anurag, you first, then I'll bring in Sarah.
Thank you. And I think it's implicit in the paper, Alex. I mean, it's a very well-written paper, very clear. Just implicit in this, we've looked at all of the options, and we do need this land. I think that's the only thing which didn't sort of come out in this paper.
Yes, albeit there's ongoing work on Bakerloo line upgrade, which Stuart's team are leading on, and the depot requirements will kind of ebb and flow over that time. But at the moment, we think this land is needed, and it will help us a lot. It is, right next to operational railway land anyway, so it's a prime location for us to use these assets.
Thanks for that clarity, Sarah.
Hi, thank you. Alex, I guess I just wanted to understand a little bit around it's phrased in a very specific way around it. It's an approval in principle. And so I just wanted to understand a little bit if this is our backstop position, if we did need to use it, would you come back here or would you come back to pick, or Alex, would it sit with the team? I just wanted to understand that.
I probably want our lawyer to answer that one, Andrea.
Yep.
Yes, so it is an in principle approval from the board, and then if the board give that understanding orders, then it's delegated to the relevant chief officer, who would be Alex in this regard, or the commissioner, to then actually determine if we need to make the actual application. And I should also add that there is a further step if we did proceed with the CPO, which is actually under the Greater London Authority Act. The mayor has to actually also agree to making that application.
So those questions, it's really important those questions are asked and they're answered in public. Okay, if there's no others, the board is asked to note the paper and approve the principle of TfL making a compulsory purchase order for the acquisition of the property interests at Queen's Park Sidings and Stonebridge Park Depot for the programme, should it be required, as described in this paper and shown at appendices 1A and 1B. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. Thanks, Alex, for that presentation as well, and Andrea for that clarity. We're now going to get to the various panel meetings and subcommittees that have met since the last time we met. The first one is the report of the meeting of the Customer Sustainability and Operations Panel, and that's Mari.
Thank you very much. We had a really good meeting of the Customer Safety and Operations Panel in June. We covered a wide range of issues, all of which are in the report, but it included the Cycling Action Plan, the Corporate Environment Plan Capital, and our strategic approach to climate change adaptation. I wanted to focus on one area because it's relatively new and not something we look at very often, and there's been a lot of progress on it, which was the Corporate Environment Plan in relation to capital, where we had a really good discussion following an excellent report. And it was great to see the focus on upskilling key staff, on embedding a green approach to capital, and a wider requirement to do this at an early stage in projects, plus strengthening standards to meet environmental requirements. What was really positive and really good about this was we felt it was really being embedded. This was a kind of strategic approach. It wasn't an add-on. It was something which was really at the heart of projects and at the heart of the way we were doing things. So very good report, very good discussion, and a good project. Thank you very much. I'll leave it there.
Thanks for that, Maury. Any questions or comments? Okay, we're asked as boards to note the paper. Is that agreed? Thanks. The next item is the Land and Property Committee, and that's Anurag. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We had a really good meeting last time, and now that Places for London is quite well established, the committee has also now started examining the wider estate, because Places for London is actually only about 8% of the estate, and 92% lies outside of Places for London. Now, a vast majority of that land is operational, but nevertheless, I think it's right that the committee starts examining that, and we have discussed the development of an initial land and property approach through to 2030 to try and make sure the estate is being used efficiently and maximize the value. And in that regard, a joint estate steering group has been started, so we'll look forward to the work coming out of that, and Alex is leading on that with his team. Alex mentioned the new homes. 300 new homes are expected to reach completion this year, so that will add to the growing number of homes. The Commissioner mentioned Hatton Cross fast charging. The last thing I'll leave on, and I'll take the papers read, is we're starting to think about how do we extract value and perhaps monetize some of our assets without selling them outright and losing the long-term income stream. So watch the space. There's some innovative thinking going on at Places for London, and I'm really hoping that we can bring that work to the board perhaps in a few months' time. Thank you.
Can I say the new approaches, I welcome it, and the Joint Estate Steering Group sounds like a cracking idea, and I think it's really good that we're always forward-thinking and stuff, so thanks for that work. Any questions or comments to Anurag for his committee? Okay, thanks, Anurag. We're asked as a board to note the papers. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. The next item is the Finance Committee meeting, and that's Deborah.
Thank you, Chair. So in the absence of the actual Chair of the Finance Committee, I chaired our meeting on the 8th of July. We discussed third-party income secured by TfL spatial planning team, working in partnership with other teams across the business to support its objectives. TfL has secured a further 56 million in Section 106 contributions for the 25-26 financial year, which, if the developments proceed, would help fund such areas as step-free access, bus capacity, healthy streets, and bus driver facilities. Mayoral community infrastructure levy funds of 100 million have been collected via the boroughs towards the repayment of the Elizabeth Line debt, as well as borough community infrastructure levy contributions towards transport. Bids have also been made to the new City Hall Developer Investment Fund. These were focused on station capacity and step-free access, as well as embedding women's safety more centrally in new developments and urban realms, and that's an area of great interest to me personally. The committee noted the impacts of the current housing market on future mayoral and borough community infrastructure funding. TfL have introduced emergency measures with the Mayor and Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government to try and stimulate house building, and regular discussions were held with government as some aspects of demand, stimulus and supply interventions may be needed. This consultation on the new draft London plan will commence this month, and it's set to shape the developments in London. TfL continue to embed the third-party funding action plan to coordinate partner activities and manage the balance of risks and opportunities. We also noted the proposed approach and timeline for proposed increases in the Silvertown and Blackwall Tunnel user charges to account for inflation from September this year. And following the close of the consultation period with the Silvertown Tunnel Implementation Group on the 29th of June, approval by the Chair's action will be sought from members of the committee. If agreed, a new statement of charges will be published. We also gave authority for 4 contracts. It was quite a robust discussion in both Part 1 and Part 2, and for that I just want to give a personal thanks. I know Tanya isn't here today, but Tanya was able to stand up and provide the quorum. I don't know if exec want the combination of me and Tanya to be something to go forward. It did feel a bit like a pincher movement of, sort of like the good, the bad and the ugly, but the conversation I felt was really robust over some of these areas. The extension of the road user charging business operations services and enforcement operations services contracts with Capita Business Services for the period of 5 years is one of the contracts, and this contract is vital to reducing vehicle numbers, improving safety, tackling air pollution and noise, and contribute revenue of around £1 billion per annum. The 2-year extension of the Capita, again, access and WAN wide access network contract that delivered networking services for TfL offices and operational sites. There's an 18-month extension from March 2027 of the comms, CCTV access control and security systems maintenance and upgrade services contract, which provided these services across the estate. And then finally, the Pan-TfL physical safety, physical security guarding, reception and associated services contract was awarded for a period of 5 plus 2 years. The committee did receive the letter from the General Secretary of the RMT, which was shared which called for the services to be brought in-house. The decision to re-procure these services followed a review of the comparable facilities management labour-based contracts undertaken in 23 and 24, which concluded that contracting the services continued to deliver the best value for money and represented the only affordable option within TfL's current funding constraints. And I would like to give assurance to the board that whilst the committee is not responsible for responding to that letter, we do know that a response is coming through, as it said, that's provided a response back. TfL would keep this conclusion under review, and if circumstances change, the contract, including a right for TfL to voluntarily terminate either in whole or in part on a minimum of 3 months' notice, was also very well received by the committee. We also noted the assurance activity undertaken by the Risk and Assurance Directorate during Q4 and considered updates on the enterprise risk update for environment, including climate adaptation, which is ER03, and enterprise risk update changes in customer demand, which is ER09. Apologies for the length, but I want to make sure I was really clear about what we discussed. It was a really robust conversation, and I just want to thank everybody who participated.
Really helpful, Deborah. Thanks for that. Questions or comments, Deborah, as Vice Chair? Thank you so much, Deborah, for the additional comments. We're asked as a board to note the paper. Is that agreed? Thanks, everyone. The next item is the People and Remuneration Committee meeting, and that's Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Some procedural aspects of that committee meeting that are referred to in the report, which I won't draw out now, but in terms of things I will highlight, really good to read our colleague quarterly report. And I think for members that don't sit on the committee, it's a fascinating and really informative read from Fiona and her team about all the range of aspects that TfL is doing in terms of looking after our people. So I'd commend that to members that don't normally see that. Just pull out a couple of highlights from that. The fact that TfL has achieved the Disability Confident Leader status, which is the highest award that you can get in that programme. I think that is really good. And also linked to that, we welcome the work that's being done to help people who have challenges in accessing employment across a whole range of society. And we look forward to a further deep dive on that subject at a future committee. Really, really important work. Thank you. Thank you so much, Peter. We're asked as a board, if there's no questions, to note the paper. Is that agreed? Thanks, everyone. The next item is the meeting of the Programmes and Investment Committee meeting, and that's Peter as well. Peter. Thank you, Chair. I think, again, further recognition of the committee, as we've talked about at board this morning, about the wide range of activity that's going on in the programmes and investment space. Really lots of activity going on, led by Stuart and his team. We looked in some detail at the continued work to implement the 4 lines upgrade programme, 4LM, recognising how complex that programme is. And if we wanted world comparisons, it's right up there in terms of a signalling scheme and a control scheme. And the committee gave that the due recognition that it deserves. We focused in detail as well on the Piccadilly line upgrade scheme, and the committee resolved to establish a separate and dedicated group just to keep the focus on Piccadilly line upgrade over the coming months, to make sure that we get implementation, again, of a very complex and a challenging project. And we welcome the work that's being done on the DLR extension to Thamesmead, noting that this is not just a railway project or a light railway project. It's a complete unlocking of a whole bunch of socio and economic developments in that part of the city. So we look forward to hearing more progress on that in due course. Thank you. Great, thanks. Any comments or questions to Peter? Okay, we're asked the board to note that report. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. And the final committee is the Audit and Assurance Committee, and that's Keith, as Vice Chair. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I was happy to chair in Mark's absence. You don't have any feedback from the meeting yet on the papers, because it was only yesterday afternoon, so I'll just go through some of the main points. And it was a really good meeting, very good presentations and papers, and some really robust challenge back, which is, I think, a good example of the committee doing its job well. We had a lot of annual reports. It's that time of year. Under matters arising in actions list and delegated authority items, we noted 2 updates. the mayoral direction on fares, which was reported earlier at this meeting, and that there had been one use of Chair's action in relation to the sign-off of the 25-26 scorecard outturn, and that outturn was subsequently considered by the People and Remuneration Committee. As a prime example of evidence that lawmakers really know how to increase levels of excitement around new legislation, we also looked at the sexually titled English Devolution and Community Empowerment Act 2026, which is expected to commence late summer 2026, and that will result in changes to the terms of reference and membership of audit committees for relevant authorities, and that includes TfL. We're making representations on the proposed timetable and the content of the regulations, particularly in relation to the requirement for an independent person to be a member of the audit committee. Any changes to the terms of reference or membership of the committee will be submitted to the board for approval in due course. We considered the draft statement of accounts, the annual report and the review of governance and the annual governance statements for 25-26. The accounts are currently out for consultation. Any subsequent change requests will be considered by the committee at its next meeting. The committee has recommended that the board confirm its overall approval of the provision of an ongoing guarantee by Transport Trading Limited of all outstanding liabilities of subsidiary companies listed in our report, and that's enabling those subsidiaries to be exempt from the need to have their accounts audited. There were detailed discussions on assurance items, including places for London, the IPAG quarterly report and legal compliance. The key discussion was on the Risk and Assurance Annual Report and Assurance Statement for 25-26. Head of Internal Audit's opinion for the year ending March 26, taking account of the outcomes from all audit engagements completed during that year, was that TfL's overall framework of governance, risk management and internal control provides assurance for TfL's business needs and operates in an effective manner. Areas of established good practice and strong internal control were recognised. Positive assurance has been attained in many areas, and attention was drawn to a number of recurring themes, including the reliability and integrity of data and system capability. These are reflected in the audit plan and in the governance improvements plan for the current year. Members noted that updates are provided in quarterly and enterprise risk reports, and we were assured by the General Counsel, Chief Finance Officer and Head of Internal Audit that the Executive Committee considers audit reports and was strongly focused on the closeout of actions, as were the responsible chief officers. We requested a thematic response to the issues raised to the next meeting in September, so we'll be considering those then. The relevant chief officers will also be in attendance for that item, and the future discussions of the Risk and Assurance Annual Reports and Assurance Statement. And we'll also have an annual refresh briefing for all board members on how risks and findings from internal audit reports are managed. We had a discussion in the meeting that actually when you come into this role through the induction process, there's a lot of information and reassurance provided, but 2 years in, you then kind of realise how significant some of those items that are, so kind of almost like a reinduction on some of these key issues is really important, so that's what we're arranging. Finally, there was also a detailed discussion on the revenue collection contract transition, such an important element of the work we're involved in at the moment. It's critical to maintaining the operation of TfL's revenue collection system, ensuring continuity of service during the transition to the new supplier. Given authorities and oversight of the contract falls across AAC, but also the Finance Committee and PIC, both Mike and Peter attended for the discussion at our meeting yesterday, and we agreed that PIC will lead on all authority matters and decisions with appropriate updates to our committee. And finally, at the end of the meeting, we had our annual informal discussion with EY, TfL's external auditors.
It's very helpful, Keith. I'm really grateful. Any questions or comments to Keith? Yeah, please, Deborah.
It's just one. Oh, my mic was on. Sorry, it was just one, which was the proposal that we also do the annual conversation with our internal audit and assurance team as well. It's really helpful to hear.
Thanks, Deborah.
Just, I think Andrea's kind of looking a bit slightly confused. Obviously, you weren't in the meeting when we discussed that, but I think it was a sense that we have this annual informal meeting with EY. It would be really good to have something similar set up for our internal audit. So
we do.
I haven't yet conveyed that to you.
And we do. So members meet with Lorraine and Jill annually as well on your own. So we'll continue with that.
Okay, thanks very much. We're asked as a board to note the paper. Is that agreed? Thanks, colleagues. Any other business or actions the Chair considers urgent? None from me. Andy? Okay. Great. The date of the next meeting, hopefully you've got in your diaries, Wednesday the 23rd of September. Thank you all so very much.